Pokemon Ninjutsu Master Chapter 1101-1150. Chapter 1101. Wait a minute, Yi reminded. I want you to pay more attention during this time, and help me find out about the person, Landau. Landau, Ichigo asked curiously. I remember this is. You should have overheard it when you were fighting the Soul Hunter. Landau was the initiator of the Soul Hunter. He was the head of the Technical Research Bureau 1,000 years ago, and he should have disappeared from people's sight now. Yi changed the conversation and said the importance of this person, but it doesn't matter whether he is intentional or not. There is no doubt that he caused the Soul Hunter to be born, and now I can't find any information about that experiment. Information, so finding him directly is the most effective method. Luokan nodded and said, well, we will pay attention. The people divided into several groups, took the map made by Luokan, and moved towards the current temporary location of the Soul Hunter. Soul Hunters want to take revenge against the Soul Society, but their approach is wrong. It will only endanger the innocent. Ichigo said seriously. Luokan agreed with a smile, and then asked, yes, but why are you following me? Kyuubi also made a suspicious voice, but Ichigo couldn't understand it. Luokan could only smile bitterly. It seemed that Kyuubi was not very optimistic about Ichigo. Of course it's to learn lessons and accumulate experience. I deeply feel my inadequacy, so I plan to stay with you to learn. Just like Mr. Yi, I want to become stronger. Luokan sighed and thought, sure enough, he is the protagonist of this world, and every protagonist of a passionate fan will always have such a bridge at a certain period of time. Forget it, keep up with me, the Soul Hunters are real, my good days in the human world have been disturbed by them, so I have to come to the Soul world. Luokan sighed, he just wanted to quickly eliminate all Soul Hunters and return to the peaceful daily life of the human world. On the other side, Rukia has already arrived at Liuhun Street, and she is walking towards the Spirit Garden. Although the road is not very far, the atmosphere on the street makes Rukia feel extremely depressed, a strange feeling that cannot be described. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Could it be that the matter of the Soul Hunters caused everyone to be in danger yesterday? Biting her head, Rukia concealed her injuries, thinking that as long as she reaches the spiritual court, she will be temporarily safe. But Rukia's body injuries haven't fully recovered, and now it's very difficult to even run hard. He didn't tell anyone, not even Ichigo and Luokan. Rukia thought it was okay at the time, but she went through a lot of overwork and became ill from overwork. Phew, the breeze blew, and a burst of sand drifted away with the wind, and when the smoke cleared, Rukia's eyes widened, and a familiar figure appeared on the empty street. It's you. Rukia knew that there was no escape, so she could only fight. That's right, the opposite was one of the Soul Hunters who confronted Rukia not long ago. Little girl, it's you, you're the only one. Ha ha ha, you can't escape this time. Yushi took out her weapon and laughed wildly. Nita, come out. 100 million. Chapter 1102. He, this time we must defeat her beautifully and perfectly. The two weapons began to amuse themselves again, making Yushi very speechless. Rukia's current strength is inexhaustible, and the only thing she can do is to try her best to escape towards the spiritual courtyard, but Yushi is chasing after her. The 33 of Destruction, King Huazui. The 4th of Destruction, Bai Lei. Rukia could only use this simple move to meet the enemy, and the result of the 373 can be imagined. Yuki and Rukia are like the relationship between the predator and the prey. Yuki is like a cat playing with food and is not in a hurry to kill each other. Rukia can only take advantage of this time to stay away as much as possible. The spiritual pressure fluctuations on both sides began to appear on a large scale, and Rukia prayed that this would bring about a turning point, whether it was observed by someone in the spiritual court, or Luo Chen noticed it. Sure enough, Luo Chen noticed Rukia. The abnormality of Reiatsu, it seems that Rukia has encountered a soul hunter. Ichigo, I went first. You feel my Reiatsu catching up. Time is waiting for no one. You come on. Ichigo was dumbfounded. He is not very good at feeling Reiatsu. He is still training, but he can only agree. Who told him to keep learning? Luo Chen and Juwei quickly approached Rukia's direction, and after a while, they reached the battlefield. At this time, the surrounding buildings had been damaged a lot, and many of them were broken walls. It's really violent. Let me see where Rukia and Soul Hunter are. Luokan stood on a slightly higher house, and felt carefully that the strong spiritual pressure just now disappeared. This situation is the winner may have been decided. Don't! A shrill roar pierced through the space, and Luo Chen hurried towards that place. Although the sound did not sound like Rukia, if the average person was injured, the Soul Hunter might be there too. Sure enough, Rukia had been cornered at this time. She was seriously injured, her left arm could no longer be lifted, blood dripped from above, and a large cut wound appeared in front of her. On the opposite side is the Soul Hunter, holding a child in his hand. It is the child who is struggling, but to no avail. As long as you don't move, let me kill you, only this child, I can spare his life. Yushi said condescendingly. Rukia can only lie on the ground now, panting heavily. The series of battles just now had caused a lot of damage to her, and now she doesn't even have the strength to speak. Huh, why, if you don't answer, you just acquiesce. Then I'm welcome. Yushi showed a hideous face and shouted, Nita. It was too late, but the time was too fast. At the moment when the sword was released, a Zanpakuto cut through the space and inserted it in front of Rukia, blocking Yuki's attack back. Who is it? After Yushi asked this sentence, she broke out in cold sweat, because she felt a powerful spiritual pressure, and it was already approaching. Looking back, it was Luokan standing in front of Rukia. 4.5 Is it you? Yushi obviously lacked confidence, but she seemed to suddenly think of something, smiled slightly, and said, I may have to respect you 3 points outside, but in this world of corpses, let me warn you, you are not my opponent. When Luokan heard this, he laughed angrily and asked, Oh. Then where did you say that? Ellipsis 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 dot. XXX. Chapter 1103. Haha, who will tell their cards? But you just need to know that I can beat you. Yushi said. When Kyuubi heard this, she immediately jumped forward and looked at Yushi with wide eyes. The fireball in her mouth was ready to go, but it was stopped by Luokan. Yushi shrank her neck, obviously a little afraid of the creature in front of her. After all, she almost destroyed her weapon back then, but she actually didn't want to fight Luokan. After all, she felt that Luokan was unfathomable. 22. Are you really going to fight me? I don't care, but the little girl over there is not necessarily. The game pretended to be calm and said, if you don't take her to the spiritual court to see her injuries, she will be injured. But it won't last too long. Is this really good? Yushi wanted Luokan to take Rukia to treat her injuries first, although she was reluctant to let the enemy go away in vain, but now self-protection is the first. Luokan saw Xiao Juju in Yushi's heart and said, it doesn't matter. Luokan turned around and handed Rukia a pill. The more he used, the less he used it. If the system didn't give him a reward, he would be sitting on the mountain. I hope that defeating the Soul Hunter can give me some rewards. So, I haven't defeated a single one yet. It's really unfortunate that I let him run away. Luo Chen said helplessly. Rukia took the pills, and the injuries on her body began to heal slowly. It was no longer life-threatening. As long as she sat in meditation, she would be healed within half a day. Yushi was taken aback. She had never seen such a magical medicine before, and a little sweat appeared on her cheeks. She was ready to attack. Let's start. She threw the child in her hand, and Ninetails rushed forward immediately. Her body grew bigger, and she received a steady, uninjured one, and the battle was about to begin. Luo Chen didn't intend to keep his hand. He immediately took out the Zanpakuto and aimed it at Yushi. The spiritual pressure in his body began to spread out, and Yushi felt obvious pressure. Boom! Luokan's feet pressed hard, and the whole person rushed up. Although my strength has indeed increased greatly after returning to the soul realm, it is still good in the human realm. Yushi didn't react. Although the death god and soul hunter have increased in the corpse and soul world, the increase in the dust is terrifying. With that speed and strength, Yushi can't resist. Nita. Yushi transformed her fan and sword into two armors, in which the sword became armor, which was put on the left hand, and the fan became larger and became a shield, which was protected in front of him. Luokan didn't stop. He believed that his Zanpakuto would not be stopped. If he couldn't be more confident at this time, he would be sorry for his strength. The Zanpakuto is extremely sharp. The strength of a Zanpakuto depends on the strength of its owner's spiritual power. Luo Chen's nine tails are like slashing water and breaking the air, splitting Yuxi's fan in half. Passed through the wind pressure swept Yushi out, but Luokan would not make the same mistake again. He immediately stopped the momentum of the knife and chased the rolling Yushi with another knife. Although this knife is less powerful than the previous one, the speed is increased, and there is no impact, but the sharpness is improved by a grade. Swish. Yushi hasn't reacted yet. All her two weapons have almost turned into tatters, and she was also injured by the powerful spiritual pressure. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1104. PFF'd. Yushi couldn't hold back and spit out a mouthful of blood, which completely lost to Luokan in terms of momentum. A person is often the easiest to give up at this time. But Luokan didn't give her time to breathe. Any enemy should not leave room. This is what Luokan insists on. Otherwise, even if there is no harm now, who can say for sure in the future? Damn, at the juncture of life and death, it is the easiest to break through. Yushi is no exception. Since this is the soul realm, I'm welcome. Show you my cards. Yushi's spiritual pressure suddenly increased by several levels, and Luokan could faintly compete with each other. Luokan stopped moving, wanting to see what tricks the other party was up to. I saw Yushi spread out her hands. Bursts of spiritual pressure emanated, and the surrounding buildings and the surrounding quanta began to tremble. Start breaking down. This is Tilda. It's just that when I was young, the wounds on Yushi's body, whether it was a scratch or a penetrating wound just now, had all disappeared, and the blood had also been cleared away. This feeling is really amazing. It's like controlling time and space, although I know I haven't reached that level yet, but have you seen my strength? Yushi waved her left and right hands, and the fan and sword returned to her hands, and they became intact. As long as I am still in the soul world, as long as there are spirit suns in the soul world, without you, the god of death, will not be able to defeat you. We soul hunters. We're back to perfection again. The two weapons laughed loudly, without concealing their joy, and Yushi also showed a triumphant smile in advance. She felt that Luokan was no longer an opponent. But Luo Chen didn't panic. Instead he began to approach Yushi, taking a confident step, with the Zanpakuto in his hand lying across his chest. Steady as Mount High. This is the only word in Yushi's mind right now. She doesn't know why Luokan has not retreated when she sees her strength. She is confused, she is shocked. Why do you come here like me? How can I kill you if I don't get close to you? Luo Chen rushed forward, and the Zanpakuto swung 4 times in 1 second, locking Yuxi's position from 4 directions. This is definitely not a phantom, but the speed of falling dust is enough for these 4 knives to swing out in 1 second and slash the enemy at the same time. Buzz. There was no turbulence the first time, this time there was just calmness. Yushi was knocked to the ground again, and she could use a fan and armor to protect her head and heart. Diaresis, your strength is strong enough, but it's not that I didn't gain anything. I just hit you in the nick of time, use my armor. Yushi hurriedly recovered, but her body recovered in an instant. Good Zhao good. Look carefully again, Luo Chen reminded. Only then did Yushi see that her sword had been scorched by high temperature and turned into a liquid, and the fiery red liquid kept dripping from the body of the sword. Good job, Juwei. Luo Chen gave Juwei a thumbs up, and Yushi quickly poured in the spirit to repair the sword. Recovery, right, but there must be a limit. As long as it exceeds a limit, it's still useless. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1105. What? Don't you see how powerful my repair ability is? This is the particularity of soul hunters. Even your gods of death can't absorb spirits like this, right? Yushi didn't take Luokan's words to heart at all. You said you could do it, then come here and let's try. Luo Chen said to the system in his heart. You honestly explain, will you be rewarded for defeating this soul hunter? Yes, of course. The rewards of this system are all based on the host's achievements. Soul hunters are no trivial matter, of course there will be rewards. The system replied immediately. Then, why didn't the old man who controlled the whale give me a reward? Luokan asked dubiously. Don't tell me that guy is not a soul hunter. The system seemed to be sweating, and under the coercion of Luokan, he could only say, this system did not detect his defeat, it can only be said that he escaped for a while. Luokan has no choice. Then we can only put hope on this guy, this time I won't let her run away inexplicably. Yushi had already rushed over, and Luokan signaled Jue not to go forward, saying that it was enough for him to be alone, and let it protect Rukia. Jue understood what Luokan meant and did not follow. I now feel that every time I get injured and then recover, it seems to be 1 point higher than the original wall. That's right, I have always been in a prime state, but you are gradually losing physical strength. If this goes on, I think it will be you who will lose in the end. The Zanpakuto in his hand is the response. Luokan now only pays attention to the reward, and the soul hunter disturbs his peaceful life in the human world. Ding, ding, ding. Fallen Zanpakuto, 9 tails, Andioxi's sword collided several times. Yushi began to be at a disadvantage, and the speed of falling dust soared again. Cut, prick, hack, draw, pick, ... All the moves were combined, and Yushi's sword had no way to stop it, so she could only use a fan to barely protect her in front of her, but these were all in vain. Looking at Luokan's Zanpakuto, it didn't touch Yuxi's body, but the wind pressure generated at high speed was like a sharp blade, stabbing Yushi completely, not to mention that this is the corpse and soul world with lush spiritual children, and the wind pressure is even more powerful. Recovery. Yushi absorbed the spirits from the surroundings and constantly repaired the injuries of the body, but it was often injured again just after the repair, and by the way, a few new injuries were added around. The fan and the sword have long been unable to hold up. Under the two-way attack of falling dust strength and speed, Yushi's middle path is gradually opened, it is a deadly chest. The Zanpakuto's body is approaching, it's getting closer, and it's already approaching in front of you. That sharpness seems to be able to pierce the hardest skull and split the spine in two. Cut. Luo Chen stopped his attack, raised his Zanpakuto high, and prepared for the final blow. Although he stopped for a while, the gap was not enough for Yuki to escape. Yushi can only block all the fans and swords in front of her, and inject all the spirits of the upper limit of her body for reinforcement. At this time, she did not notice a figure appearing not far behind her. Thousands Sakura. Thousands of cherry blossoms fluttered from the man's surroundings and hurriedly attacked Yushi, half a minute faster than Luo Chen's slash. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1106. What? Yushi felt the murderous aura behind her, and instantly broke out in a cold sweat. This was her closest death so far. It can be said that there are wolves in front and tigers behind. Boom. Thousands of blades swept in, and Luokan hurriedly avoided it. Even if he used his body to take this move unprepared, he would be injured. Sure enough, it's you, why are you here? Seeing this attack method, Luo Chen knew who the visitor was. In the smoke, Kuchiki Byakuya appeared. His expression was still the same calm and cold, but there was a hint of worry that others could not easily detect. But this worry disappeared after seeing Rukia. Luokan waved his hand, indicating how to intervene in the battle. Kuchiki Byakuya didn't look at him, he just walked towards Rukia and slowly picked her up. Kyubi stepped aside, he knew that the man in front of him was at least an allied soldier. At this time, Rukia had already fallen asleep, and the wounds on her body were beginning to heal, but Kuchiki Byakuya obviously wouldn't let Rukia recover so slowly. Boom! Senbon Sakura's interior suddenly became unstable, and a very huge fan broke through. Kuchiki Byakuya took back Senbon Sakura and looked at the enemy in front of him with a hint of disgust in his eyes. Hee, it's an honor for two captain-level characters to come and fight with me in person, but my battle is here. Goodbye, you two. After Yushi finished speaking, she fled to the sidewalk. When the two were still trying to chase, the earth suddenly began to shake, and the smoke mist formed by the explosion rose in the spiritual courtyard, rushing straight into the sky. Things seemed to have come to an end for the time being. The soul hunters suddenly stopped their activities, or it became very difficult to find soul hunters in the world of corpses. They hid. It was already afternoon. The captain-in-chief summoned the captains to hold another meeting, and Luo Chen was also invited to join. However, after the entire meeting, no specific results were discussed, because no soul hunters were found in each territory, but Ichinos, the god of death, began to be closely investigated. When Kuchiki Byakuya returned to the mansion, he immediately went to check on Rukia's situation, but I didn't expect Ichigo and Inoue to come uninvited. Kuchiki Byakuya didn't want to see this taking away her sister's power in his heart. People. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Even though Kuchiki Byakuya didn't give Ichigo a good look, Ichigo didn't care, he just wanted to avenge Rukia now. Hey, Kuchiki Byakuya, let's join forces. Although we were enemies in the past, why don't we deal with the soul hunters together now? Do you want to avenge Rukia too? Kuchiki Byakuya shook his head and said, no need, if you want to take revenge, go alone. I don't need to join forces with you. After speaking, Kuchiki Byakuya made a gesture of seeing off the guest. Ichigo and Inoue Orihime were also very helpless. After all, this is also the Kuchiki family's own business, and it is difficult for others to intervene. The two returned to Zibo Konghei's house. The others had already returned, including Ishida Yulong and Luokan. So, in the morning, the soul hunters bombed the confession palace representing the 13th team of the Guardian. Yi showed an incredible look. I didn't expect that such a day would come to that building, but what is their purpose? 100 million. Chapter 1107. The purpose. It should be to declare war. Although it's very confusing to disappear after just declaring war, but blowing up the shrine of repentance will undoubtedly tear up the face of the gods of death. Their desire for revenge is unswerving. Zibo Kong analyzed it carefully, but I still don't know their methods. Luokan, have you encountered one of them? How is it? Did you find out anything? Luokan scratched his head and said, Sanchichi is a pity, I only care about him in a fight, I don't have the habit of talking nonsense with others when I'm fighting. Yi nodded and said, yes, this is what it really looks like in battle. Zibo Kong glared at her, but he was helpless. Now he doesn't even know where the soul hunters are hiding, how they sneak in and destroy them, and how to launch an attack there. It can be said that the enemy is in the dark and I am there bright. Yoichi didn't get the information they wanted from Ichigo and the others, and most of them never met a soul hunter. Luokan knew the location of the soul hunter, but he was not very familiar with Soul Realm, which was different from Human Realm. The map looked strange, and some of the divisions were confusing. So Luokan plans to copy this map down and show it to Kong. After all, Zibo Kong is an expert in the Soul Society. At this moment, Shiba Konghei's younger brother, Shiba Gansu, was coming back from outside. A pig's roar cut through the night sky, and Shiba Konghei's face showed anger. XXX. Sister, I'm back. I'm going to be. Wow. Before Zibo Ganju finished speaking, as soon as he entered the room, Zibo Kong kicked him on the floor and stopped speaking. Zibo Kong blamed. Where did you go all day today? Didn't you see that we were all gathering intelligence? Shiba Gansu didn't dare to make a sound at first, but when he heard this, he felt that it would be impossible not to stand up. So he said, "Eldest sister, I am also going to collect information, and it is still very powerful information, it is guaranteed to be valuable." Zibo Kong let go of his feet, sat back in his seat, and said, "Oh. Then tell me, let's hear it, I'm being devastated by the soul hunter right now." When Shiba Ganju heard this, he got excited and said, "Of course it's the information of the soul hunter. I spent a day in Ryahun Street to inquire about the movement of the soul hunter, and as expected, let me find it. It's gone." "Where are they?" Ichigo asked. "High probability, no, it's definitely in the Kaolu area. I'm sure," Shiba Gansu assured, patting his chest, "because it is said that some strangers suddenly came to Kaolu Casino today. Of course it's not uncommon for some strangers to come to Liuhun Street, but these people who don't know where to fight seem to have conquered Grass Deer Casino, and they seem to be planning something." Shiba Gansu added. "It is said that the leader is a white-haired man, and there are two people behind him, especially one of them is the god of death. So those who know about this are very impressed." 4.5 inches the white-haired man. Could it be that guy Karya? Luo Chen nodded and replied, and Yaiki agreed, then that Shinigami is Ichino's. Zibo Kong stood and waved. "Very good, as expected of my younger brother, then let's move towards the Kaolu area now. There is no time to delay." Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1108. "Okay, everyone, come with me, ride on my most beloved pigs, and go." Pigs, pigs. Everyone came to the door, and there was a row of pigs at the door. Each of them was extremely strong. Although it was very strange to describe it as strong, these pigs didn't seem to be easy to mess with. They must be strictly trained. Ninetails fell from Luokan's shoulders, and became as big as a pig, as if competing. It was proving to Luokan that it was not inferior to any creature in terms of mounts. Although everyone murmured for a while, but otherwise this is indeed the fastest means of transportation at present, Luo Chen sighed and said, "Forget it, I'll just walk by myself, I can't accept riding a pig." After all, if only 22 knew that it was in the Kaolu area, they would arrive at the same time as they asked for directions, and now there is no worry of getting lost. Luokan used Shunbu to walk into the distance, and Ichigo followed. First, he couldn't accept the problem of riding a pig. Second, he had already decided to follow Luokan to learn combat experience in the future. Inoue, who was the most stark contrast, didn't feel like Ichigo and Luokan, but thought Pig was cute. She kept stroking Pig's body, and soon established a wonderful bond, which made Shiba Gansu stunned for a while. "No matter what, let's go to the Grass Deer area." After the episode, Shiba Ganju rode the love pig and led the crowd to the Grass Deer area. At the same time, Luokan and Ichigo are also heading towards the Kasuga area. Luokan intends to go directly to the Soul Hunter's nest, but he is also constantly thinking. What is the purpose of their going to the casino? What means are they going to use to achieve revenge? Thinking of this, Luo Chen's eyes lit up. Could it be that they are planning to recruit troops and start a rebellion? This is really crazy. In the Kaolu area, although it seems that the wind and waves are calm on the surface, the moonlight scattered calmly anywhere in the Soul Realm, and sprinkled on the Kaolu area, just like normal. In a forest, it is still calm, but after a while, you will find something strange, that is, the surrounding creatures suddenly stop moving. Sha. There was a figure walking through the woods, stepping on the fallen leaves. Although the footsteps made noises, he didn't care, because not far away, a person was leaning against a tree, watching him approach with interest. "You are Karya God, a soul hunter, right?" The visitor drew out his Zanpakuto and asked. He was a god of death. The other party smiled, stood up straight, walked out of the shadows, and asked, "And you are Kuchiki Beizai, the head of Kuchiki's clan, one of the 4 famous nobles in the Soul Society of the Guardian 13, right? What a pleasure to meet." Neither of them were talking, they were just slowly approaching to a certain distance. The distance between the two gradually shortened, and finally only a few meters away, they stared at each other, motionless. I know. During the day, members of our clan forced your sister Rukia Kuchiki to death, right? And are you here for revenge? Kuchiki Byakuya replied expressionlessly. It has nothing to do with her. I am not here to take revenge, but to eradicate the enemy for the Soul Society. Really? Why do I feel that you are a little dishonest? But, forget it, let's start. Chapter 1109. Kuchiki Byakuya has been suppressing his mood since the morning. Although he looks very calm on the surface, it seems that Rukia has nothing to do with him, but he doesn't think so in his heart. It took so long to finally find out the possible hiding place of the soul hunter. Byakuya Kuchiki came here non-stop. It seemed that what he really wanted was not revenge, but he couldn't tell what emotion it was. I've admired the name for a long time, how about we have 2 moves? Karya said provocatively, although he knew that Kuchiki Byakuya was not someone who would easily get caught, but now that he doesn't want to fight, he has to fight. As soon as Karya's words fell, Kuchiki Byakuya in front of him disappeared, as if he disappeared out of thin air, and even Reiatsu disappeared at that moment. But Karya didn't panic and laughed, because he already knew where the other party was. He looked back and saw a white light cut through the space and flashed towards his neck. Buzz! A burst of invisible power suddenly surged around Karya, and it was with this that Karya's upper body evaded the attacking Zanpakuto at an incredible angle. Kuchiki Byakuya stood on the spot after the blow. His move just now was the ultimate move, and it was also a trial move. That is, the killer, and there are reservations. Karya's speed was not at all lower than Kuchiki Byakuya's shunpo just now, but in an instant, the distance between the two was once again about 10 meters apart. Do soul hunters also have such a movement technique? I underestimated you, Kuchiki Byakuya said. Karya smiled and said, is even such a powerful god of death so surprised? If you only have the strength just now, you can't defeat me. Kuchiki Byakuya didn't answer, but stood the sword upright in front of him and said, let's scatter. Senbon Sakura. In an instant, a burst of spiritual pressure erupted from his Zanpakuto, and that spiritual pressure was 3 points stronger than Kuchiki Byakuya himself. The entire blade instantly began to melt away and disappeared, replaced by pink cherry blossom petals. To say that the strongest solution in the entire corpse and soul world, Kuchiki Byakuya is not necessarily the first, but if it is said that the most beautiful, Kuchiki Byakuya is the boss who does his part. Karya was also attracted by the beautiful scene in front of him. He was just admiring it. He wasn't worried about Kuchiki Byakuya's attack. It's really beautiful. The Thousand Blade is absolutely wonderful. Diaresis, it's a pity that you don't have the opportunity to enjoy such beauty again. Kuchiki Byakuya's Senbon Sakura is not just a beautiful vase, but a real strength. Thousands of petals fluttered in the space, and instantly surrounded Karya's entire body, and he could never be seen again. As long as he was blocked like this, no one could come out intact. But Karya overturned this fact. Just in an instant, Kuchiki Byakuya's Chinbon Sakura began to deviate from the established track, Good Jiao Jiao, and began to be out of control, just like the frozen fingers temporarily lost their intuition. Boom! Chinbon Sakura's petals suddenly swelled all around, covering Karya's body with a layer of invisible battle clothes, and she was defending without dead ends. Even Chinbon Sakura couldn't break through. Take it! Kuchiki Byakuya took Sakura back and looked at Karya vigilantly. Karya smiled even more unscrupulously. Chapter 1110. He wiped the blood on his face, felt the pain on his cheek, and said with a smile, as expected of a solution, even me, I haven't been able to fully defend against it. Kuchiki Byakuya asked, is this barrier-like thing your so-called puppet? It seems to control the wind, so this is your ability. The intuition of battle is very sharp. As expected of the death god of captain level, but you will be at an absolute disadvantage in the future. I have the confidence to defeat you and that captain. You can try it. Kuchiki Byakuya charged forward with a knife, intending to make a quick decision and give the soul hunters a dismay as a whole, but Karya, who should have avoided it, even rushed up. "Oh, I thought you would evade my attack." Kuchiki Byakuya was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Karya, who was bare-handed, would calmly face himself with his Zanpakudo. "My weapon is my fist." Karya did not show weakness, and with empty hands, he had a close contact with Kuchiki Byakuya's Zanpakudo. But in the next instant, Kuchiki Byakuya didn't feel the flesh, and no blood splashed out. Karya really stopped his Zanpakudo. When you look carefully, you can see clearly that it is not that there is nothing on Karya's hands, but there are layers and circles of air, or wind. On the contrary, such a powerful force erupted from these invisible and formless substances, with a stronger defense than steel and a stronger attack than a sharp blade. Kuchiki Byakuya and Karya continued to stand still, and the surrounding trees had already broken several. At the same time, Luokan, Kyuubi and Ichigo were getting closer and closer to their destination. Because Luokan felt the reiatsu of Kuchiki Byakuya and Karya, he brought Ichigo to the battlefield quickly. On the other side, Shiba Gansu, Chato, Inoue and others, who were riding on pigs, had already reached the Kusaka area, but as soon as they arrived in the Kasuga area, they were blocked by a group of people. "Where did you come from? You are not allowed to pass through. This place has been blocked by us. Even if you are from the spiritual court, I will not let it." Several people blocked the road, preventing Zebo and others pass. However, Shiba Gansu has already made a great reputation in some areas of Ryahun Street. Although the grass deer area has little influence, his temperament cannot be ignored by these unknown people. "Get out of the way. Forget it, hit me. Go ahead." With the order of Zebo Ganju, the pigs who had not slowed down at all increased their horsepower and rushed towards the crowd. With the screams of the crowd, the whole situation returned to silence. After that, several people were knocked unconscious by the impact on the spot. Zebo Ganji got off the pig, grabbed one of the sane people and asked, "Good boy, do you know who your Uncle Zebo is? Dare to block our way?" The guy was frightened and hurriedly said, "This has nothing to do with me, it's what our boss asked us to do, saying that no one who has no light can enter." "What else do you know? Bring it to me. Otherwise, you will have some good fruits to eat." Shiba Ganshu coaxed and frightened, and managed the guy obediently. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1111. All recruit. All recruit. The guy honestly said everything he knew, like pouring beans into a bamboo tube. Just in the morning, a few people came to our Kaulu area, and the leader was called Karya. They and our boss signed a deal. What is it? Subverting the Soul Society. Although it sounds ridiculous, the boss is still very interested. We are now in further discussions. The rest is not something that people like us can know. Let's go. Let's go straight to their nest. After Shiba Ganju heard this, he immediately decided to go to the line with those guys, but his little brother was a little worried. "Boss, is this inappropriate? Besides, even if there are no soul hunters, their number is dozens of times ours. This is too reckless." When Shiba Ganju heard this, he nodded and said, "Indeed, there are only a few of us. Even if Inoue and Chadu are extremely powerful, they are still very dangerous." "Very good, I've decided." Shiba Gansu quickly made a decision. "Let's go to Blue first. After all, about the grass deer area, just ask the people in the grass deer area." "But he won't be with the soul hunter." Someone worried that if a dumpling came, it would be dangerous. "No, I believe that guy won't be that kind of person." "That's it, stop talking nonsense, let's go now." Everyone rode on the pig and embarked on the journey again. And Luokan, Kyuubi, and Ichigo have also reached the forest where they were fighting. This place is no longer a forest, because the surrounding trees have been chopped off at once, and even a little bit, even the roots have been pulled up. It's so open, Luo Chen sighed. It turned out that there was already a large open space where Kuchiki Byakuya and Karya fought, and the ground collapsed a few feet down. This power is simply unreasonable. This This kind of power, although my Tiansu Ozanyu can also achieve it, it must be done with all my strength. I didn't expect the two of them to use a big move as a normal attack. Ichigo sighed. Road. But after all, Ichigo plans to go up and help. After all, Kuchiki Byakuya and Kari are fighting so hard that Ichigo has enough confidence to turn the tide of the battle. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Luokan said, I think you should not go up and cause trouble now, you will only help more and more, let alone Kuchiki Byakuya. Ichigo said confidently, Luokan, just watch it, my solution is not weak. After speaking, Ichigo rushed forward in a daze. Seeing this, he shook his head. Joining the battle now might be able to quickly disintegrate the Soul Hunter, but it did not relieve Kuchiki Byakuya's emotions in the slightest. Ichigo, I'm just waiting for you to create a chance for me. The crescent moon is rising. Just when Kuchiki Byakuya and Kariya were fighting fiercely, such an uninvited guest interrupted all their attacks. Kuchiki Byakuya's ruthless face also showed a hint of sullenness. You kid, step back. What's wrong here? Don't blame me for killing you together. Ichigo Kuchiki Byakuya was joking and said, You bastard, you clearly said that you can join forces, but now you can't beat it alone, what can you do here? 100 million. Chapter 1112. Kariya saw that the two people didn't like each other, although she felt it was not good. But now she was able to take advantage of the discord between the two, saying possibly a good breakout opportunity. XXX. Oh, isn't this the apprentice reaper boy? Come on, the two of you together. Kuchiki Byakuya said angrily, Are you humiliating me? Chinban Sakura Jingyan. The scene was even more chaotic. Kariya's wind, Ichigo's crescent moon Tenchong, and Kuchiki Byakuya's Chinban Sakura mixed the spiritual energy in the 380 area upside down. However, this is not without merit. The three, whether strong or weak, all suffered some injuries. Among them, since Kariya was the main target of the attack, the injuries were more serious than the two. Although Ichigo was also bleeding, he proudly pointed at Kariya with the Zanpakuto and said, How is it? Do you think I'm very powerful? Kariya shook his head and said, On the contrary, I think you are very stupid. I used to feel very stupid, but now I think you are very stupid. What? Ichigo was not provoked by his words, but instead exclaimed that Kariya's recovery ability was so unbelievable. I saw that after just a few breaths, there was no more blood on Kariya's body, and even his clothes were restored to their original shape. It's like juggling. Although I knew that soul hunters would have a very large increase in the soul world, I didn't expect it to be so big. Byakuya Kuchiki gritted his teeth. What? As long as we are in the soul realm, our soul hunters are invincible. Look at the move. With a heavy wave of Kariya's arm, an invisible wind blade of air rushed towards Ichigo. If you are hit, the consequences will be unimaginable. But Ichigo didn't notice this transparent attack, because even Reiatsu was insignificant. Although Kuchiki Byakuya felt it, it was too late to rescue. Nine Tails. Luo Chen shouted loudly and jumped down from a tree in the distance. Nine Tails responded with a fireball, condensing the air of the wind blade and smashing it away. Kuchiki Byakuya looked at Luokan and said, Luokan, why are you here? Luokan said, Luokan is also my cousin anyway. His life was in danger just now, so there is no reason for me not to participate in the battle, but don't worry, I am measured, and I will also warn Ichigo. When Kuchiki Byakuya heard this, his dissatisfaction with the two of them was relieved a little. You two were very tired just now, let's take a rest first, I'll play two moves with him. Luo Chen said to Ichigo and Kuchiki Byakuya, but before they could answer, he had already stood with Kyuubi to the hunt. Yamai. Buzz. Luokan's Zanpakuto and the wind on Kariya's hand collided, making a sound of cutting the air. Although it could penetrate deep, it could not really touch Kariya's hand, which would give people the texture of a mud cow entering the sea. Kariya distanced himself from Luokan again. His pace was still undisturbed, and from a certain distance, he began to wave his hands frantically, and the wind around him began to gather and spin. Luokan kept using his Zanpakuto to resist the wind that escaped from the wind group. The power was less than 1/10 of the wind group, but it made 4.5 Luokan's hand feel a little numb. The preparation for the move is complete, and Kariya's two arms are wrapped around two huge wind groups, or in other words, his two arms are two wind columns. At this moment, a strong attack suddenly struck from the sky, disrupting the battle of the two people who were ready to go. When the smoke cleared, Ichigo took a closer look, was startled, and shouted, "You! Aren't you Fangye?" Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1113. That's right, after the smoke cleared, it was Yoshino who was once killed by Kariya who was standing there. The foreign trade person in front of him was like Yoshino himself. Ichigo was taken aback by the person in front of him. It was impossible for a soul hunter, who should have died, to appear here. So the next second, Ichigo asked cautiously, "Who are you? Aren't you Yoshino?" Lilin, who followed Ichigo, hid aside and frowned. Although she looked exactly the same as Yoshino, the Reiatsu and other breaths were different. The two of them were more like twins. Lilin shouted, "Ichigo, be careful. She is definitely not Yoshino. I can feel the spiritual pressure of a soul hunter. She is not a soul hunter at all." 22 inches. What did you say? Ichigo was surprised. In this world of corpses, except for the god of death, who is the undead, who is this woman in front of him? Luokan, Ichigo, and Byakuya Kuchiki stand in a triangle. In this situation, they haven't thought of cooperation yet, and Kariya is also very puzzled. "That's right, although I don't know who you are talking about, but I'm Landau." The woman in front of her, Landau, said so. Her voice was calm, and she didn't lie at all. Kariya widened his eyes and said, "Are you Landau? Are you the Landau who created us? Are you the founder who made our soul hunters suffer so much?" Landau looked at Kariya and said in an unexpected tone, "I thought you were a very calm person." Then she turned around and said to Luokan, "Yo, long time no see, Luokan, I'm very happy to see you here." Luokan himself knew that he was no longer the original Luokan. After searching in his memory, he realized that he and this, Orchid Island, did have several relationships. Although it was a long time ago, the two of them were still a little bit friendship. "Oh, hello, Landau," Luo Chen responded in a smooth voice, but Landau had no doubts. "Huntya's breath is not very stable," Landau asked. "Are you going to kill me here?" Seeing such a situation, Luokan quickly blocked it, but it didn't seem to be his own will, because the life and death of the woman in front of him really had little effect on him. Is it the remaining instinct of my body? Is it the memory of the original fallen dust left in the body? How strange. But thinking about it this way, Luokan has come to the middle of the two, and the two of them looked at Luokan with strange eyes. Ichigo also hurriedly followed and said, "I can't let you kill her now, after all, we have a lot to ask him." "No, I won't kill her now, because she gave us so much pain. How could we just kill her?" Kariya shook his head, restraining his emotions. "I want to kill her after completely subverting S-linking." Kuchiki Byakuya couldn't stand it any longer, so he took the lead in launching an attack on Kariya. Chinban Sakura rushed towards Kariya directly, and Kariya did not let down her guard, and immediately dodged. "Then, it should be almost time now, and my main target is not you, so I'll go first." Kariya turned around without entanglement, and immediately walked out of the woods. Ellipsis. Chapter 1114. Ichigo didn't hesitate. He opened the D-solution and rushed forward, and he forced Kariya to stop, and Kariya showed a trace of impatience, but in a short time he couldn't help Ichigo. After all, this was the D-solution. Kid, you're really not afraid of death." Kariya's hands were wrapped around the ultimate storm again, and the amazingly rotating wind combined into a wind blade, which actually suppressed Ichigo's solution. Cut. Luo Chen didn't watch anymore. He used the Zanpakuto, 9 tails, instilling spiritual power and slashing out fiercely. With just one move, it was comparable to the destructive power of the crescent moon, and he slashed towards the center of the wind blade. Brush. Since he focuses on attacking and is very confident in his defense, he does not use additional defenses. But in an instant, Karia's wind blade began to disintegrate, a gap appeared, and the aftermath of the attack took advantage of the momentum. Buzz. Karia was taken aback, but it was too late to escape. The moonlight added a touch of paleness to the blood, and Kuria burst out, clutching his blood-guzzling right arm, looking at Luokan viciously. Very good, very good. Except for Landau, you are the one who annoys me the most. Wait, the day when the spiritual court is overturned is when you wait to die, Tilda. Karia waved his hand, the power of the wind invaded invisibly, took back the right arm that was left within the attack range of the falling dust, and began to repair it. In the soul realm, although the soul hunter's increase is terrifying, he will still suffer injuries and pain, and Luo Chen will also give him a dignified defeat. Let's go. Ichigo still wanted to intercept it. It was indeed an effective way to attack Wonglong at this time, but at this time, Koga and Daruku restrained the charge and resisted Ichigo's slash. Come on, you still have to guide us, nothing to do. Koga and Daruku stood in front of everyone, raised a cloud of dust, and fled with Karia. They haven't gone far yet. Let's go after them. Ichigo was about to take action when Luokan grabbed the collar. Don't chase, their aura has long since disappeared, this is the trouble with soul hunters. What? But Luokan knows it, but it might as well wait for them to concentrate on attacking S-Lingting, and annihilate it in one fell swoop. If there is no accident, it is estimated that their general attack will start tomorrow. I'm going back first. Kuchiki Byakuya said hello and left. Luokan knew that Landau wouldn't do anything to Ichigo, so he said, bring it here, I have my own business to do. Landau shouldn't be a bad person, so that's it. After speaking, Luokan disappeared, leaving Ichigo blankly in place. Now that the matter of the soul hunter is clear, it is necessary to investigate the matter of the Shinigami who is suspected of betrayal. Diaresis, although I wanted to end it quickly because it was troublesome at first, but now I'm starting to enjoy it. At this time, the system suddenly spoke, and the tone seemed to be very sinister. Host, I will adjust the system upgrade according to your good money behavior, you have to think about it. Luokan curled his lips and said, it doesn't matter, as long as you tell me when the upgrade will be truly completed and let me make the most of it, don't keep chasing me. The system said as if clapping its chest. Come on, when the host completes the next big task, the system will be completely upgraded. Please look forward to it. Ellipsis. Chapter 1115. At the same time, all parties are also making their own preparations. Shiba Ganju took Chato, Inoue and others to find an acquaintance in the Kusaka area. Bruce, it was already morning. Hey, why did you suddenly come to the Kaulu area? Blue saw Shiba Ganju from a distance. Shiba Ganju said straight to the point. I came to you to inquire about soul hunters, don't say you don't know. At first, Blue was still refusing, but he couldn't hold back Shiba Gansu's lecture, so he had to say, what is your purpose, just tell me. Shiba Iwasu laughed and said, isn't that gesture calling for a party? I'm here too, you help me to call a party too. Blue questioned, it's not easy to do. But I'm curious, how can you help Death to this extent? Shiba Gansu was suddenly silent, and after a while he said, maybe it's because of a friend I know. After all, we can't make peace with the soul hunters now. Okay, let's do it, waiting for your good news. Ichigo sneezed and turned around. The sky was already bright. He stood there blankly. Just when he wanted to open his mouth to ask Rondo, a voice came from behind him. Ichigo, is it you? Why are you here? Ichigo turned around and found that it was Ishida Yulong behind him, and said, I want to talk about you. By the way, this person is Randao. Landau and Ishida Yulong looked at each other and read some secret emotions from each other's eyes. Landau smiled slightly and said, Death, Soul Hunter and Quincy. What a wonderful combination of opponents. Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses and said, "What are you trying to say?" Landau waved his hand, turned around, and said, "If you want to know more, just come with me. Talking in this place will make your waist sore, right?" The two looked at each other, nodded, and followed Landau. Lilin climbed onto Yihu's shoulder, and the four left the place. In Lingting, although it has been less than 24 hours since the Palace of Confession was bombed, the restoration project has already started in full swing, and a lot has been rebuilt now. The captains such as Hitsugaya and Yukitaki Shuru were watching from the side, still sighing with emotion in their mouths, brooding over what happened yesterday. Who is it? Who infiltrated the spiritual court? Soul Hunters. I don't believe they have the ability. I heard that among our Shinigami, especially those at the level of captain or vice team, are rebellious, otherwise they wouldn't have a great attack power. Yesterday, even Zaraki Kenpachi's subordinates were defeated. Well, indeed, it is very likely that it is a certain death. At this moment, Ni Yuli brought Ni Yinmeng to the construction site and said, "Ha ha ha, I think this is a feint attack launched by the Soul Hunters to attack the Lingting." Fake attack, but it's almost fixed. They haven't done anything yet. This feint attack is useless. Yukitaki Shuru said. Ni Yuli nodded and said, "Indeed, this is meaningless." Wait a minute. No. He frowned, as if he had found something, but after thinking about it carefully, he couldn't catch the slightest guess. The other captains saw his strangeness and asked, "What's wrong?" Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1116. Ni Yuli left immediately and said, "It's nothing, I'm sorry, everyone." A few minutes later, Ni Yuli didn't actually go anywhere. He came to the data center of Lingting because he had a discovery he wanted to verify. Squeak. The door opened, Ni Yuli walked in, turned his head and jumped. Jian Yi and Luo Chen had been waiting here for a long time. "So it's you, what are you doing here?" Ni Yuli asked. When Ni Yinmeng saw Luochen and Yi, she also breathed a sigh of relief. At least it wasn't the enemy who sneaked in yesterday, and she didn't have any hostility towards Ni Yuli. Of course, it was more because he saw Luochen. "It's nothing, I'm just here to wait for you. I know you're very smart, you must be able to understand some things," Luo Chen said. "Humph, of course I can see through all the tricks, and this time is no exception," Ni Yuli said proudly as he sat on the seat in the main control room. Yi and Luo Chen approached. Yi said, "Ni Yuli, Luo Chen and I are both participants in this incident, and you, without any objection, are helping Zhou." "What are you talking about? Don't spit blood." Ni Yuli stood up angrily. "Now the soul world is not peaceful. For the sake of death, I won't care about you this time." Ni Mayuri knew that Luo Chen's strength was very strong, at least in his sense. He was not inferior to Kuchiki Byakuya, or even close to the commander-in-chief. Otherwise, how could the commander-in-chief treat Luo Chen as a guest of honor? "That's not enough, you must be looking for something here, right?" "That's right, can we listen to your conjecture first?" Luo Chen asked. XXX. Ni Mayuri sneered and said, "Listen, the person who sneaked in yesterday was none other than Ichinose. Ichinose's Zanpakudo, rainbow, has the ability to refract light, making him look like it's transparent, so he sneaked into the spiritual garden. However, no matter how he got in, as long as there is entry and exit, the door will definitely open. I compared the monitoring and the changes of Reiatsu at that time, and finally found the figure of Ichinose." Luochen nodded and said, "Well, as we thought, you go on." Ni Yuli had a question mark on her face and thought in her heart, "You all came to listen to what I said, but it doesn't matter, after all, your little brains can't compare to my Lord Ni Yuli." Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. I think he infiltrated the spiritual court and blowing up the Repentance Palace was a feint attack, but it was a feint attack. He came in to modify the information in the control center, but in front of me, there was nothing to hide. Ni Yuli eliminated his voice and said, "Let me see what he did." 0. So he started the operation. He was worthy of being the chief of the Technical Research Bureau. After a while, the entire data had been found by him. Luokan, Yeyi, and Nianmeng watched him operate in a mess. Finally, their fingers stayed on the carriage and pressed the button, and some hidden information appeared on the screen. That's true. Ni Yuli pointed to Luo Chen. Luokan smiled, pointed to a random place, and said, "I suggest you take a look at this first." Ni Maoli looked in the direction of her fingers, and she was instantly shocked. I saw that it was a bracelet. It was the bracelet he gave to Ishida Yulong at the beginning. Not good. It's a trick. 100 million. Chapter 1117. It's impossible. How could I be used by such a smart person? Ni Yuli made an unbearable high-pitched voice, and Luo Chen impatiently pressed him, who was just about to bounce from the seat, directly and honestly. True. However, Yuli still seemed to have lost his mind. His eyes were empty, knowing that Nian Dream was calling in his ear over and over again, "Captain Yuli. Wake up. What's the matter?" At this time, Sancho Niuli sighed deeply, showing a fairy-like expression, as if the world had lost its color. "I was actually used by Ichinos and soul hunters." He pointed to the bracelet on the screen and said, "It was Ichinos who calculated it. He calculated me. At first, I would think of that kid from the Quincy. Did I accidentally take care of him? Damn it." Yi said, "It seems that I guessed correctly. I didn't expect you to have this day. Yuli, you are really clever, but you are mistaken by cleverness." Nian Meng couldn't see that others laughed at her captain, and retorted, "This is not the captain's intention, he is just being used." Luokan sighed and said, "Ni Yuli, for the sake of your helping me, I will help you make up for the flaw this time, and it will be considered a favor for you." Ni Yuli was already in a cold sweat, because Luo Chen and Yi were already aware of the cause and effect of this incident, and he couldn't force their mouths. Ishida Yulong must have never talked about this matter, but Luokan and Yi, who are also the gods of death, can't guarantee it. Originally, Ni Yuli was worried that this matter of his own would be spread out, and he didn't know what impact it would have, but Luokan was such a mess. Said, the big stone in his heart finally fell to the ground. "Thank you very much." Ni Yuli breathed a sigh of relief, "But when did I help you? Why did I forget? If you don't mind, can you tell me?" Nianmeng responded, "Lord Yuli, the two of them have just left." "Luokan, what are you going to do?" Yi asked. He could see that Luokan's mind was not on the road, but was thinking about one thing. "It's nothing, you go back first, I'll find Kenpachi for something." Yi stopped and asked slowly, "It wouldn't be Ichinos' business, would it? They were originally a team, so if you are looking for Kenpachi, but don't overwork yourself. ... Well, I'll pay attention. That's it." Luo Chen turned around and headed towards Zaragi Kenpachi's residence. Yaiki looked at Luo Chen, who was gradually disappearing from view, and set off for Shiba Sora's residence to wait. Is it really good for me to tell him so truthfully? Although the people of a team should be resolved by themselves, but the relationship between Ichinos and Kenpachi is not very good. Luokan had also heard some rumors, and with the additions of Yi and Zibo Kong, it was possible to piece together the truth of what happened back then. It turns out that Ichinos and Kenpachi are also members of the 11th Division, and the former captain who has always been a teammate admires them very much, and works hard to achieve their goals. However, Kenpachi defeated the original captain through a challenge and became the new captain of the 11th Division, which made some members including Ichinos unhappy, but what if he was unhappy? Ichinos can be said to have gone to extremes. He was the only one who left the team and did not recognize Kenpachi as the captain. Chapter 1118. And he has been aiming to defeat Kenpachi for many years, but in recent years he has suddenly disappeared for no apparent reason. Just thinking about it, Luokan has come to Jonpachi's residence. It has not been a long time since the last time. Although there are people guarding it, but sneaking into this kind of place, the pheasant Jonpachi and Bachinliu can detect the abnormality, but they don't care. Hey, Luokan, why don't you go to the main entrance properly? Are you in such a hurry? Before Luokan could gain a firm foothold in the courtyard, Jonba and Bachinliu had already stood in front of Luokan. Luokan smiled awkwardly, and Jue climbed out of Luokan's clothes and looked at Bachinliu, as if no one was convinced. Jonba, I'm here to tell you something. However, at this time, how can you stay in your residence safely? Luokan asked. Kenpachi said, I don't know why, but I always feel that something is lingering around me. By the way, it's Ichino's, right? What happened to him? I heard that he became an accomplice of the Soul Hunter. Bachinliu thought thoughtfully. Luokan smiled slightly and said, I found Ichino's position, and I think it's better to tell you guys. No matter what, he was originally from your team. Jonba was silent. Bachinliu saw that Jonba didn't speak, kept looking at him, and then said tentatively, Aegean, what's wrong? Tell me, where is he? In the grass deer area, Carria and others have gathered a large number of the people of Lusol Street, and they all want to subvert the spirit court together with the soul hunters. When do we act? Looking at the people who have been summoned below, and the offensive weapons that have been prepared, Koga asked. No hurry, at least wait until dawn before setting off. Carria said. But at this time, Ichino's objected. I sense that there are a lot of death gods approaching this place, and it seems that Reiatsu should be above the deputy team. It is not easy to deal with. We should start now. If we drag it on, Lingding must have been prepared long ago. Packing Up looked at the people waiting for orders below, and the soul hunter beside him, and said, okay, let me know, we will set off tonight. Break through the gate, take the spirit court directly. Oh, the crowd cheered, and hundreds of people set off towards the spirit court in a mighty manner. At the same time, there are indeed many gods of death heading towards the Kusaka area, not only Ichigo and Ishida Yuryu, but also Matsumoto Renki, Renji and Hitsugaya. Captain, the scouts in front have been resolved, and the number of people is increasing, and they are all gathered in this place, it seems right. Hitsugaya nodded and said, as I expected, the changes in the Kaulu area are no longer a movement that can be concealed. Today we will break through and kill the attempts of those soul hunters as soon as possible. Yes, the three of them moved towards the Kaulu area without any hesitation. At this moment, intentions came from the bushes next to them. It was the sound of several people walking through. This Reiatsu, is it the Shinigami? Is that the rebellious Ichino's? Hitsugaya aimed the Zanpakuto and shouted, come out. Call out. Two figures emerged from the woods. The five of them knew each other, and they were all relieved. It was none other than Ichigo and Ishida Yuryu. Chapter 1119. A few hours ago, Ichigo and Ishida Yulong got some information about the soul hunter from Lan Island, but there was still no key information that could reverse the current situation. The soul hunters were indeed caused by the mistake of our immortality experiment. Those souls escaped our control and were thrown into reincarnation. But why is there a soul hunter who looks exactly like you? Yihu asked, which he, Ishida Yulong and Lilin couldn't understand. That's because those soul hunters were all made from the god of death that we conducted the experiment with as a sample. The original technology is now officially similar to the predecessor of the soul. Landau replied. Lilin was taken aback and said, so that's the case. Is it because we are close relatives that our pseudo-souls can sense the breath of soul hunters? It seems that's right, Landau replied, but this made Lilin feel lost for a while. We're going back to stop their attempts, Ishida, it's time for us to go Tilda. Landau nodded and said, you guys go first. In order to deal with the soul hunters, I still have things to do. I will go there later. Then, Ichigo and Ishida Yuryu met Hitsugaya and the others. Isn't this Ichigo and Yulong's younger brother? They've been very active recently. You guys are here to deal with soul hunters too. Matsumoto Renku greeted. Renji and Hitsugaya were not so enthusiastic, but they also said hello. That's right, we not only fought their boss just now, but also met the creator of Soul Hunter, Landau. Don't talk about this for now, there will be time in the future, let's stop them first. No one can control you when Mr. Luokan is not here, but I won't condone you. Ishida Yulong pushed his glasses and pulled a guard as leaving. But the goal of the 5 people is the same, they all head towards the place where they can feel the Reiatsu, and that must be where Ichino's is. In the S-Lingting, Luokan walked slowly on the street, he was enjoying this tranquility now, because he had a premonition that soon, the battle between the Soul Hunter and the S-Lingting would start. System, don't be rude. After completing the Soul Hunter quest, you must level up and give me corresponding rewards. The system said ambiguous. It seems that there is such a thing, but I also want to tell you, don't think about eating and waiting to die. Diaresis, what do you mean? You mean I won't work hard? Luokan asked back. That's what I mean, why don't I add another restriction to you? The more Soul Hunters you defeat, the more rewarding you will be in the end. You should be motivated, right? The system said. Luokan frowned, you bastard, who do you take me for? But if you don't take it for nothing, you won't regret it. Of course, good money, this system is the credit guarantee of Dakion World, when has it broken its promise? At that time, Luo Chen walked to the gate of S-Lingting. He usually walked past like that, but today he felt a strange atmosphere. The gatekeeper's spiritual pressure has become very weak, is he injured? Who did it to him? Luo Chen's inspiration radiated out, and the spiritual pressure within a kilometer radius was displayed. Ellipsis. Chapter 1120. Is it the Soul Hunter guys in the grass deer area? So fast. Sure enough, in the next second, the door of S-Lingting slammed open, and the person outside the door used a crane-like tool to forcibly open the forehead gate of S-Lingting. Those who entered Luokan's field of vision were the injured and comatose gatekeeper, the people who were in a daze, and the leaders Ma Chao and Yushi. I really don't want to be with you, Tsukasa, what I said in my heart, but Karya said so, there is no way, he has Koga and that old man on his side, cut. Yuki complained. Ma Chao also curled his lips and said, stinky mother-in-law, you think I'm willing to team up with you, who made us pretend to attack? The two of them were still arguing, but seeing that no one was moving, they felt very strange and asked, come on, why don't you rush in? You too, the god of death in front of you doesn't look very easy to deal with. The person who replied swallowed and pointed at Luo Chen. It's you. Both Ma Chao and Yushi had a shadow on Luokan. For a while, everyone fell silent, and the scene was very embarrassing. Luokan scratched his head and said helplessly in his heart, I didn't expect that I was so unlucky, and it was recorded that I encountered these unlucky things at the main gate. I'm sorry, since I met you here, I invite you to go back, it's good for both parties. Luo Chen waved his zanpakudo, and Nine Tails slipped from his arm, jumped aside, and looked at the opposite side fiercely. Damn, Luokan, have you already seen through our plan and are here waiting for us to take the bait? You are too smart and conceited to think that one person can resist us all. Ma Chao shouted, encouraging the others go first. Oh, you think so, even if you can try it. But I fell into the dust, and the two words I didn't know the most in my life were, keep your hands. Be conscious. Come on, Ma Chao commanded, and everyone rushed up. They felt that there were many people on their side, and all their fears were reduced. Hey, what do you think? Didn't Karya abandon them when he said it? Yuki asked. Hee, it's just a tool, you can use it how you want, when you use it and when you throw it away, you have to learn from me for a few years. Ma Chao stopped talking. Nine Tails, although I say this, it's still up to the point. You can do it. I will knock them unconscious with the back of my knife. After all, my target is only soul hunters, and these people should be handed over to the S-Spirit Court for trial. Woo! Jue roared, indicating that he understood. One person and one beast stood upright at the gate of S-Lingting, quite like a husband who was in charge of everything. Cut. Luokan is holding the handle of the knife, but it is the back of the knife that is slashing. Although the sharpness is not as good as the front, the strength is not bad at all. On the contrary, due to the blunt surface, the impact was a bit more powerful. Luo Chen held the saber in his right hand and the scabbard in his left, and swung his hands continuously, blocking almost the entire gate. But if you think about it, you will definitely be beaten by the high-speed moving knife. XXX. Ah, run away. How could I have thought of going against the spirit court? One person roared, and the avalanche began. Soon, only 2 soul hunters were left. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1121. Come back to me, Ma Chao shouted, but it didn't work. Few people would stop and watch, but it was just a swipe of effort, and there was no one at the scene. Luokan walked out of the spiritual courtyard slowly and said, "How is it, do you want to continue your attack? Now there are only the 2 of you left." Damn, seeing that Luokan didn't take them seriously at all, the 2 of them were also very angry. Luokan, don't be too arrogant, even if it's you, it's still very difficult to face the 2 of us at the same time, right? You can try it, but the price is the lives of both of you. Luo Chen waved the zanpakuto in his hand and approached slowly. He knew that at least the 2 people in front of him would not escape, so he was not in a hurry. Superior. The 2 adopted Yushi's frontal attack and Ma Chao's assisted tactics. Originally, the 2 people's dolls were like this. Yushi planned to contain Luokan, and then Ma Chao took advantage of it without using the doll to control it. Luo Chen had already seen through this thought, but he kept silent, intending to settle the plan, and exchanged glances with Jue. Ding! There are sparks at the connection between the dusty zanpakuto and the Gain's sword. I have to say, just talking about difficult words, those people just attacked together is still difficult to resist. But in terms of strength, it is still very difficult for these 2 soul hunters to account for more than 90% of the entire team. Kai. Luokan's zanpakuto rubbed Yuxi's sword and slid down, and slashed towards Yushi along the blade. The reiatsu was so strong that Yuxi's knee on the side that was attacked began to fight. It's now. Ma Chao approached from Luokan's neutral position, released his doll, and rammed towards Luokan. In terms of attack power, this doll is not particularly strong, but it still has some penetrating power. If a normal Shinigami doesn't use the zanpakuto to block it, his body will definitely be penetrated. But the killer of this doll is not to attack, but to control the human body. According to Luo Chen's strength, if it is controlled, the entire soul world will definitely be doomed. It is estimated that only the commander-in-chief and the protagonist Halo of Ichigo can suppress it. But Luokan didn't like to let such a thing happen. Ninetales. Break it down. Ninetales jumped up. At this time, there were no innocent people around, and this was the Soul Realm, so Luokan had no worries, which had caused Ninetales to let go of the restrictions on attacking after a long time. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. I saw a careful tailed beast jade appearing in Juwei's mouth, exuding a huge amount of spiritual pressure, stronger than the knife before Luokan. What is this? It's not good. This is not the move last time. Quickly avoid it. Ma Chao was very cautious and decided that this fireball was not an ordinary fireball. Buzz. The space shook for a while, and the tailed beast jade flew towards the doll unhurriedly. Although the power was inconspicuous at first glance, it was like ripples on the water surface, but after careful identification, it was found that it would lead to a destruction of the sky. Earth-destroying tsunami. It seems like a long time has passed, but it only took a second from the launch of the tailed beast jade to hit, but Ma Chao's doll barely escaped. Ah, it hurts. Ma Chao's doll let out a groan. Ma Chao clearly felt that his doll was severely injured, and he couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. It was only a little scratched just now, and he has already suffered such damage. Boom. 100 million. Chapter 1122. According to the current situation, it is impossible for any of them to have the ability to defeat the current demon Puwu. Although the combined power may not be able to achieve it, Luo Chen believes that at least the odds of winning will be higher. Vegeta, don't be impulsive. 1 second before he was about to approach the demon Puwu, Luo Chen grabbed Vegeta. He was a little impatient with him. After he returned to Earth, he wanted to be alone and not have a fight with the default. Now Vegeta knows how powerful the demon Puwu in front of him is, and he wants to take the opportunity to test the gap between himself and Sun Wukong in dealing with the demon Puwu. What's the matter? Vegeta asked impatiently. Luo Chen then took out the earrings in his pocket. God Jabbit gave me her earrings before transferring to another planet. I think your current strength may only be achieved by fitting together. Reach him. Luo Chen was also very nervous in his heart. According to Vegeta's personality, naturally, he would not accept the urgent matter of reunion. Vegeta, knowing the difference in strength, would not want to rely on such a thing. Sure enough, Vegeta refused as soon as he opened his mouth. I am a dignified Super Saiyan Prince, so I disdain to use this kind of thing. Hearing what the plane said, Luo Chen had no choice but to give up, temporarily put away the earrings again, and said again, it's okay to not fit, but you have to deal with the devil Puwu with me. Although Vegeta was impatient, she did not reject Luo Chen, but said directly, whatever. Seeing that Vegeta did not refuse, Luo Chen followed Vegeta to prepare, ready to meet the attack of the devil Puwu at any time. Demon Puwu smiled and looked at Vegeta and Luo Chen with contempt on his face. Even if they go together, they won't be able to deal with me. After speaking, the demon Puwu moved in front of them in an instant, and punched his fist directly at them. Only then did Luo Chen realize that Ma Renpu might have seen the teleportation of the god Jepbit, and he actually learned the teleportation at that moment. Vegeta and Luo Chen responded to the attack of the demon Puwu from left to right, but they could only barely touch the fist of the demon Puwu, and Luo Chen could clearly feel that the demon Puwu didn't have any. How much power to use? Damn. After a round of battle, Vegeta looked at the demon Puwu unwillingly. How dare you underestimate me? When Luo Chen heard Vegeta's words, he thought that Vegeta should have felt it too. A certain woman didn't take them seriously at all, so she used herself in the fight. Strength. The more Vegeta thought about it, the more annoyed it became, and he threw the Chi Yuan slash at the demon Puwu. The demon Puwu didn't dodge at all, but in fact, every one of Vegeta's Chi Yuan slashes hit the demon Puwu. Demon Puwu's body still can't see any effect. Luo Chen looked at the demon Puwu's body in astonishment. He never thought that Vegeta's attack would have no effect on Molber's body. In this case, how could Vegeta have an influence on the demon Puwu? Sweat dripped down Vegeta's forehead slowly. This time he really realized the power of the demon Puwu. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1123. Ma Chao's gaze returned to the tailed beast Jade again. The tailed beast Jade was already shot in a straight line. Wherever it touched, the entire building disappeared. Being annihilated by the huge energy, not even a single bit of slag remains. Yushi was startled. She suddenly retreated, and assumed a defensive posture. Luokan turned her head to look, thinking in her heart, this is a big trouble, but fortunately, the Soul Society will handle it on its own. How is it? Jue, how is Sa Huan? Luokan spoke to Jue calmly. Jue showed a happy mood. Ma Chao and Yushi swallowed, wondering what kind of Jue is. The presence. Yushi and Ma Chao regrouped again and planned to make a frontal breakthrough. Since some skills were not good, they could only think of relying on their own strength. But at this moment, a change happened. Hey, that little brother, you are quite strong. We have seen you guarding the gate alone from far away. Really, these gatekeepers are really bad. Several leaders of the Grim Reaper have arrived at the scene with dozens of Grim Reaper, saying, it's been hard work. Let's help you. But at this moment, with Luo Chen's wink, he felt Ma Chao's movements. Get out of the way. But it's too late. If Luokan is empty, he will be able to exert his strongest power, but when his teammates are there, he must restrain his power to avoid spreading. Damn, Luokan knew that it was too late. Ma Chao's doll was able to control others. At this time, it was already possessed by an unknown god of death. Ah, what's going on? My body is out of control. This operation caused those gods of death who didn't understand the matter to look at each other in dismay, and called this kung fu. Ma Chao's figure flashed and entered the spirit court, but Luo Chen couldn't stop it due to the crowd. Come after him, leave it to me here. Luo Chen burst out with a powerful spiritual pressure. Too lazy to explain to them, the other party felt this captain-level spiritual pressure, and immediately knew that Luo Chen was not an ordinary person. Yes, all the gods of death immediately accepted the order. They knew that even if they didn't know each other, the Reiatsu couldn't fake it, and immediately chased in the direction of Ma Chao. At the same time that the war on the side of Luokan started, there were two other battlefields in the entire Soul Realm. One is another detachment of soul hunters who are also attacking the Soul Garden. Unlike the cannon fodder led by Ma Chao and Yuki, the other is the real main force led by Kariya, Koga, and Sawatari. How is it? Kariya asked. A leader in the nearby Kaolu area said, now is the best time to attack, presumably the feint attack on that side has already begun, and now the death god is not particularly hit, the time it takes to deploy it is enough for us to attack. Then let's start. Kariya gave an order, and everyone pushed the incomparably huge crane forward. They didn't have to worry about the gatekeeper, because just now, Sawadu and Koga had already defeated the gatekeeper. Come on, push the crane over and pry the door open. Everyone worked together, showing a tacit understanding and unity that had never been seen before. It didn't look like the rabble assembled yesterday. Boom. With a loud bang, the door was opened a crack. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1124. The next thing was very simple. Dozens of people pulled a rope and started to hoist the door upwards, knowing that they could pass through a gap the size of one person. Kariya, Koga, and Sawadu walked in first and said, let's explore the way first. The onlookers outside all applauded and cheered excitedly. They saw a kind of hope in Kariya, a hope that they could also subvert the spiritual court. No, as expected of Mr. Kariya God. You can easily do things that we can't do. What kind of powerful people are soul hunters? It really makes us admire him. Ha ha, these people will be happy for a while. Earlier, before the soul hunters attacked, Zaragi Kenpachi had left the spiritual garden and went to the Kusaka area that Luokan told him, which was Ichino's hiding place. At that time, the Kaolu area. Ichigo and the others had already arrived at the base of the soul hunters, and Ichigo rushed up first, followed by Ishida Yuryu, Matsumoto Renki and others, and they couldn't wait. Ichino's held the sword, and seemed to have been waiting for a long time. You guys are finally here, this is your burial place, do you have any comments Tilda? Ichigo shouted, Ichino's, why did you betray death? Ichino's frowned and said, why do you always ask this question? What, you think death is honorable and noble? I did this to uncover the hypocrisy of the death gods. Are you satisfied? Hitsugaya had already rushed up. Don't talk nonsense with him, make a quick decision, or the spirit court will be in danger. No, the spiritual garden is already in danger. Ichino smiled slightly at the corner of her mouth, as if she was mocking, making Hitsugaya feel that something was not right. However, the two were already fighting, and everyone around them took up arms and took turns to fight, but they were all very vulnerable in front of the god of death. At this moment, the sound of pigs came, and more than a dozen pigs rushed into the battlefield, flying all the enemies. Ah, it's everything, it's a pig. No, why are there people on it? The screams came one after another. Ichino's is still fighting Hitsugaya, but he doesn't take the loss of his teammates too seriously. After all, he still thinks that only himself is enough. Shiba Ganju rode a pig to the scene and confronted Ichigo. Diaresis yo, I haven't seen you for so many days, where have you been? I'm going to gather people. Shiba Gansu followed Chato and Orihime. They had already gathered a lot of people through Blue and wanted to come over to support them. But, it's very strange, these people, the soul hunters should not call so few people. Shiba Ganju questioned. Hearing this, Ichiki good money good, sneered and said, that is of course, these are just to hold back a small number of you, although it is enough for me alone. What? In other words, they have already headed to the spirit court. Hitsugaya then reacted, Ichigo, you all go to support. It's too late. Hongxia. After using Shiji all the time, everyone was wrapped in colorful light before they could react. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1125. This is it. The crowd immediately attacked their own people several times like headless flies. This is the ability of my Zanpakudo, you can't break through. Ichino's shouted loudly, feeling like she was winning. I'll take you to the sword. Ichino's mercilessly slashed the Zanpakudo in his hand towards Tushiro, who was looking for a direction. At this time, Tushiro didn't feel Ichino's spiritual pressure at all, and he didn't react in any way. If he received this move at this time, he would definitely die. Ding! The crisp sword strike sounded. Ichino's was taken aback. He didn't expect that within the range of his ability, there would be someone who could pinpoint his position. At the same instant, a powerful spiritual pressure dissipated all the enchantment-like abilities. XXX. I saw that the person standing in the same place turned out to be Kenpachi Zakagi. Ichino's titular captain, Bachinryu has also arrived, and is in charge of vigilance. It's you, Zakagi Kenpachi. The surrounding houses have long been out of shape, and they have all been destroyed into ruins. PFF'd. Yushi spit out a mouthful of blood, but soon, she began to absorb the spirits around her and began to slowly make up, but it was still a drop in the bucket. It's impossible. The power of our soul hunters is invincible in the soul world. How can you escape this rule? Yushi still vomited blood, which affected the battle. However, I haven't touched a single cold hair in Luokan. In fact, just 9 tails made him very overwhelmed. She couldn't resist the attacking tailed beast Jade, so she could only hide. Damn, what is that little demon? Luokan walked over with a Zanpakudo and said, you think you're upholding justice. Wrong, you're just putting yourself in the victim's position as the perpetrator. What? For revenge, how many innocent lives have you sacrificed? Are they willing to be absorbed by you innocently? Luo Chen angrily scolded. You are on the wrong path, but that was the wrong thing done by the former Soul Society, and so did the Quincy, but the current Soul Society is different. After all, I am a peace lover myself. Stop saying such pretty words. Yushi roared. She didn't want her beliefs to be said like that, even if it was wrong. I'll wake you up today. Luo Chen knew that he had been entangled by Yushi for too long, and Ma Chao didn't know that he would cause trouble in the spiritual court. A powerful spiritual pressure erupted from Luokan's body, and the whole person used the aura of spiritual pressure to instantly rush in front of Yushi. Yushi's face turned pale, oppressed by the powerful spiritual pressure. Her face was ashen. Boom! Luokan's blade directly bombarded Yushi's defense, and the defense of the fan and sword did not resist the forehead impact of the completion, and turned into spiritual fragments in front of the huge amount of spiritual pressure. Yushi was hit by a huge impact, and her consciousness stopped instantly. Her body also stopped the healing process. She flew out nearly 100 meters and fell into the house. She lost consciousness completely, passed out, and couldn't get up again. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Defeat Soul Hunter X1. Rewards are accumulated. Please unlock after completing the task. Huh, I finally heard what you said. I didn't expect it to be on time this time. Luo Chen breathed a sigh of relief, even if the Soul Hunter Yushi was completely defeated. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1126. Luokan heard their conversation before, and knew that the offensive on the other side had already begun. It was just a feint, and it must have already entered the spirit court from another place. Luokan didn't dawdle, and when he let go of his hand, Jue jumped onto Luokan's arm, and the two returned to the spiritual court. There are Kenpachi and Ichigo over there. Don't worry, there are still many death gods at the captain level of S-Linting. Is this the rhythm for me to save them? The wind was blowing under Luokan's feet, and he walked towards the other door, only to feel that the forehead door of the spiritual court in the distance had opened, and there were cheers from hundreds of people. It's still too late. It seems that the guys like Karya, Sawadu, and Koga are definitely here. Luokan hurried to the door, but before he showed up, the enemy didn't even know what's going on. It looks like there's an infighting. Huh, Karya frowned and looked back. It turned out that Ichigo, Chato, Inoue and the others had already come to the door. Although they were blocked by everyone, it was only a matter of time before they wanted to break through. What should I do? Koga asked. Then what? With a wave of Karya's hand, the wind blade in his hand flew out and flew towards the rope that was pulling the door. In an instant, the 4 ropes were all broken, and the door was closed again with a roar. Haha, it's so good to kill the donkey with one hand. As expected of you. Luo Chen jumped down from the roof, clapped his hands and slowly walked towards the 3 of them. Except for Karya, Koga and Sawadu are all very vigilant about Luokan, because both of them have been deflated under Luokan's hands. Don't fight him head on now. Spread out and do what you planned. Karya didn't want to be held back by Luo Chen in this place, so he immediately ordered the 3 of them to run away in 3 different directions, with Luo Chen in the first place. For a while, I really didn't know who to deal with first. But it's not bad, they are all in the spiritual court anyway, I'll just break them down one by one. Luo Chen instructed. 9 Tails, open the door. Ah! A tailed beast jade condensed in Jue's mouth, and bombarded the closed door of S-Linting. The smoke dissipated, and the forehead gate of S-Linting was opened with a hole several meters in diameter. Fortunately, all the enemies outside have been eliminated by Ichigo and the others, and the self-healing ability of S-Spirit Court will be able to plug the loopholes after Ichigo and them come in. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Ichigo, do your best to restrain the soul hunter. Luo Chen left the main entrance after leaving this figure, because now it is not here but another place that needs his support. There's something strange. Luokan sensed that the god of death in the spiritual court had an indescribable strangeness. When Luokan sensed the spiritual pressure, he discovered which spiritual pressures belonged to the gods of death were actually fighting and killing each other. It's really not normal. After Luokan's investigation and reasoning, he determined a goal. It must be that guy Ma Chao. I remember his doll is the kind that can control people. Not far away, Broken Bee was patrolling. She received information a few minutes ago that soul hunters had invaded. She immediately ordered all the gods of death to enter a state of alert patrol. Yo, Bumblebee, are you okay? Luokan jumped from the house, attracting all the people around Bumblebee to draw their knives to face each other, and Bumblebee waved his hand to stop them. 100 million. Chapter 1127. It's Mr. Luokan, is Yi alright? Shufeng knew that Yi and Luokan, whom he admired and respected, had a good impression of Luokan, and thought, is this the so-called love house Jiwoo? Very good, don't worry, she's not in the spiritual court now, she's very safe. Luokan replied. It was obvious that Broken Bee breathed a sigh of relief. While the 2 of them were chatting, one of the team members behaved a little differently, and Luo Chen paid a little attention. In the next second, he took out a short dagger from his arms and stabbed it towards Broken Bee. Passed. What? Broken Bee was taken aback, but the distance was so close that it was impossible to dodge the past. I thought you were weird. Luo Chen had already prepared, and blocked the attack with the Zanpakuto that had prepared the attack in advance. Wow, the man didn't give up when he saw the attack, but instead became more and more brave. In this case, he was like a puppet who was not afraid of death at all. It's you, Ma Chao. Luo Chen smiled slightly. He laughed angrily. He didn't expect that Ma Chao would dare to appear in his sight. The doll in this human body is his, Leeds, right? System, give me a reverse tracking. Don't worry about the other soul hunters, first follow the doll's breath to find Ma Chao. Yes, host. After a while, the system had marked Ma Chao's position, and Luo Chen raised his hand and knocked the opponent unconscious, saying, everyone should be vigilant, the ability of a soul hunter is to control, don't be stunned. I'll go first if I take advantage of it. Yes, yes, Broby responded. He did not expect Luokan to be able to give such meticulous and powerful command in such a short period of time. He was even more powerful than Yi Yi, as expected of Mr. Yi Yi's admiration people. In terms of attack power and destructive power, Ma Chao can be said to be the weakest existence among all soul hunters, but in terms of intractability and unexpected surprise attacks, Ma Chao can be said to be the first. At this moment, Ma Chao is standing on a relatively tall building in Lingting, and he can clearly control all Lilin from this place. Haha, this is a feeling of power. As expected of the soul world, as expected of the soul court. My Liz is growing. With Ma Chao's laughter, he waved his big hand, and dozens of leads kept appearing beside him. Go, go, control all the gods of death in the spiritual court, I am the strongest. Oh, I guess this increase in your ability is because you are constantly absorbing high-quality spirits, but the shortcomings are also obvious. When Ma Chao heard a familiar voice, he turned his head hastily and pulled away. Luokan, your gods of death cannot defeat our soul hunters. Around Luokan, dozens of leads appeared out of thin air, attacking Luokan. The Zanpakudo in Luokan's hand waved continuously. For a while, Liz couldn't find a space to rush in. However, you have no 4.5 way to take me. Now, under the control of my doll, the spiritual court has been in chaos, and there may be only individual combat power at the captain level. Oh, this can't be seen. Luo Chen shook his head. I still have a shortcut that can save Lingting from danger. That is to directly defeat you here. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1128. Luokan didn't talk nonsense anymore. Although Ma Chao and Doll's attack power was worrying, the headache was no less than that of other soul hunters. Give it to me, leads. Ma Chao didn't think there was a big gap in strength between himself and Luo Chen. Since there is, let me make up for it with the quantity. As soon as Ma Chao stretched out his hand, dozens of seeds were instantly formed on the palm of his hand. They were leads produced by the appreciation of a large number of pure spirits. Leads, seeds, fell on the roof and began to give birth to 22. The vegetation that looks like flowers and plants grows rapidly, and then quickly withers after the birth of leads. In this way, a large number of leads are constantly being formed, and they become densely packed in an instant, which makes the scalp numb. Woo! Zhuwei roared, because these little things that can fly around, although they look like a combination of a fox and a flower, they are flying in the sky like flies and mosquitoes, from time to time. Come glide. A fireball in his mouth split into 2 or even more than a dozen, and was launched towards leads. Not to mention it was a hit, but because leads' density was too high, it could do group damage. Ma Chao kept clicking his tongue, obviously disgusted with 9 tails. This little thing wants to compete with my leads. Luokan approached with a knife. Now both Liz and Luokan are in a stalemate. Luokan has not figured out the movement trajectory and attack logic of the Lizes, and is not planning to make a move, but just uses Zanpakudo to eliminate the approaching. Liz, too, regards Luokan as the first-class enemy, and has been watching carefully, whether there are a few temptations. Why, it's only been a few minutes, you forgot the pain of being beaten. Luo Chen mocked. He knew that Ma Chao's mood was unstable and he was easily angry, so he could just grasp this point. Sure enough, Ma Chao was provoked and said, I think you value that god of death very much. Her name is Broken Bee, right? Don't you go back and have a look. Let's just fight, don't involve others. Luo Chen looked down on this kind of person who would threaten him with others if he couldn't fight. Very good, are you in a hurry? I can see it, why don't you go take a look with me? Anyway, it's not in a hurry, although I think I want to tear you to pieces now. Having said that, Ma Chao has already headed towards his destination. Luo Chen and Zhu Wei have been under Ma Chao's surveillance because of a lot of obstructions from leads, so they followed Ma Chao. After a while, the two came to a square, and there was a person lying in front of them. It was Broken Bee. The dust frowned. Although most of the gods of death in the Soul Society have nothing to do with him, the relationship between Broken Bee and Yi Yi is not ordinary. He and Yi Yi have a good relationship, so it would be bad to watch it like this. Luokan's face turned dark all of a sudden. He couldn't bear it any longer for the soul hunters. Very good, you succeeded in dying. But now is not the time to deal with the opponent. He has to give priority to protecting the Broken Bee, and the dust will lift the Broken Bee from the ground, only to see a knife mark on the surface of the Broken Bee. Ah, is that Mr. Luo Chen? I really embarrassed the captain-level god of death, and I was actually deceived by their tricks. Luokan checked carefully and found that the Broken Bees had been poisoned. Ma Chao said proudly, how about you, are you helpless? This poison is a poison produced by bits, and there is no solution, so you can just die and struggle to your heart's content. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1129. Luokan comforted. It's alright, even if you think there is nothing in this world that I can't do, I will save you. But before Luokan took out the pills, just at this moment, all the gods of death had arrived. They saw Luokan lying on the ground. They separated Luokan, and looked at Luokan angrily. What's the matter with my captain? Did you do it? You were just watching it, you bastard. Before he could finish speaking, Luo Chen's knife had already driven to his neck, showing its sharp edge, which attracted the death god in an instant, and the icy blade seemed to freeze his tongue. What do you want to do? All the gods of death drew their knives one after another and protected the Broken Bee in the middle. They obviously regarded Luokan and Ma Chao as a group. Don't panic, just watch, I will cure your captain. Ma Chao laughed even more arrogantly. What? Do you feel safe? It depends on whether these people are yours. Come out, Liz Tilda. As soon as the voice fell, the gods of death who came to the rescue were in great pain, and then red and purple coats of arms began to appear on everyone's chest or belly, and then a bewitching flower grew out of their bodies. In just a moment, the command of the body has changed hands. Although there are already, but they are completely unable to act and speak according to their own thoughts, and they have become puppets. The gods of death escorted the Broken Bees, and they all drew their knives towards Luokan. Ma Chao was watching the play on the side, and could not wait to take out the popcorn to see how Luokan would deal with it. In this case, after killing these gods of death easily, it would be difficult for him to explain to the spiritual court, so he could only knock them all out. Ding, ding, ding. Luokan's Zanpakuto was constantly intertwined with the incoming death gods. The sword, light and sword shadow were not nervous. Luokan was looking for an opportunity to knock out these dozen or so gods of death, but there were too many people, and it was really hard to start at a time. Ninetales are scurrying among these people. In this kind of close combat that can't be a killer, it can only spit fireballs, but after a while, several gods of death were attacked, and they were knocked out and passed out. It's a huge success. Looking at Luokan who was fighting hard, Shufeng left tears silently, but what she didn't know was that Luokan was sweating profusely not because there were too many people, but because he wanted to suppress his own strength, otherwise these gods of death who did not reach the level of vice captain. Can't stand it. Diaresis, I'm not to be slaughtered by anyone. The Broken Bee seemed to use the last ounce of strength to release the spiritual pressure, disrupting the formation of the god of death. Taking advantage of the chaos, Shufeng threw out the jewelry on the middle finger of his right hand and shouted, Luokan, use this. It was a finger glove-like thing, and it was as sharp as a bee's thorns. Luo Chen swung the Zanpakuto, and the spirits in the space caused ripples. That posture is like a baseball player in the human world, swing. The sharp thorn hit the abdomen of Ma Chao who was watching the play beside him. Ma Chao was in excruciating pain, and his strength was constantly draining away, but Broken Bee's complexion had recovered. It turns out that you were always pretending to be injured. Broken Bee said, without Mr. Luo Chen's help, I can't beat you alone. XXX. Ma Chao's body continued to decline, and Liz's strength began to counteract. Ma Chao turned into a spiritual child and scattered in the soul realm, flying to the horizon. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1130. Ding! Congratulations to the host, defeating 2 soul hunters. The task is not yet completed. Seeing that Ma Chao's body was transformed into a spiritual child and disappeared from the soul realm, Shufeng breathed a sigh of relief. If Lord Luochen hadn't come to help me this time, I would have died. Luochen said, it's nothing, if you don't use that last spiritual pressure, I can't do anything to protect you while attacking Ma Chao, so in the end, it's you who saved yourself. Because the surrounding death god lost the control of Ma Chao, the flowers on his body began to wither quickly, but at the same time, it also took away the physical strength of the parasitized person. When Ma Chao and the dolls disappeared, all the gods of death were exhausted and fell to the ground, and then they actually started to sleep soundly. Fallen Dust and Broken Bee breathed a sigh of relief. Although their living combat power has decreased, at least they are not permanently lost. I hope they can restore their fighting ability before things can't be undone. After all, there are still a few soul hunters who are difficult to deal with. People. Broken Bee and the Shinigami who came later and were not parasitized planned to take these people to the infirmary, and let Hanahana Uno, who is in charge of medical treatment, conduct treatment and follow-up recuperation. Broken Bee, are you alright? Luochen asked, but he had indeed detected that the Broken Bee was indeed poisoned at the time. It's alright, haven't I said it yet? I'm a master of poison, and no one in the entire corpse and soul world can surpass me in poison use. Although I haven't seen the poison of soul hunters, I have experience. Abundant, Broken Bee said proudly. Luochen sighed. It seemed that he was worried for nothing, but in the end it was fine, so Luochen and Juwei said hello to Broken Bee and continued to guerrilla in the spiritual courtyard. Let me see how many soul hunters are left. Old Man Sawadu, Koga, and the leader Karya. They are all relatively powerful characters, so let's defeat them one by one. With the help of the system, Luochen quickly found out the location of the 3 guys. Since they parted at the door, they have been moving very fast, and they have gradually penetrated into the interior of the spiritual courtyard. Go to the nearest place first. This fluctuation is quite strong, and there is still a stalemate of Reiatsu. Let me see who it is. Not far away, Zedu was blocked by Nimayuri on crutches. Old man, where are you going? Niyuli said without a good face. Of course, he knew that the person in front of him was a soul hunter, and he was very angry about the soul hunter's use of a gunman. Ah, that's really disrespectful, I didn't see you just now. Zeju's scheming eyes narrowed slightly, and a sense of provocation spread. Both sides disliked it. Zedu said again, but since you're blocking me, it's my duty to deal with the leader-level death god. Nimayuri was very angry when he heard that Zedu looked down on himself so much. Nimayuri, who is widely known as a scientist, was very disdainful of others linking him to weak. Then try it, I can tell you, don't regret it. Niyuli, don't be carried away by anger, that old man's strength is not bad. Niyuli didn't need to look, and knew that it was Luochen when he heard the voice, and said without looking back, I am a scientist, when I put it into practice, when my research has been thorough, I will not fight unprepared battles. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1131. Luochen shrugged and said, just leave this guy to me, you can stay where it's cool. Juwei jumped off Luochen's shoulder and stood in front of Nimayuri, his mouth chanting loudly, driving away Nimayuri like a beast. Niyuli stepped back again and said, let this little guy stay away from me. But I still have to intervene in this battle. After all, who let these soul hunters use me and humiliate me? At this time, Zedu shouted, Paula, come out, these people will be handed over to you Tilda. Ni Yuli shouted. Look, he doesn't take us seriously at all. It's extremely abominable. Are all soul hunters such guys? Luokan shook his head and said, it's possible to discuss if I look down on you, but old man Zedu, did you not learn the lessons from last time? How dare you appear in front of me? Zedu sneered and said, it was fortunate that I was smart last time. Even if I sneaked into another dimension again, but now I am in the soul realm, I have no reason to lose. Take it. Paula is by far the biggest doll, even bigger than the doll that was defeated in the cave at the beginning, and her abilities are incomparably mysterious skills such as different dimensions. Generally, the god of death is really helpless. Paula sneaked into the different dimension with Zedu, and from time to time, she would come out to attack Luokan, Kyubi, and Nimayuri. Buzz. The space fluctuated for a while, Paula's big mouth appeared in an instant, and the three of them were still evading. But as everyone knows, whether it is Luokan, Ninetails or Ni Yuli, all of them have their own trump cards hidden. This time, Zedu encountered three people who could basically be said to be the ones who defeated him without knowing it. Luokan, you have no choice. Tell you, I have researched something good. Luokan smiled, and said with great interest, oh, I'd like to hear the details, just let me hear what the great scholars in the Soul Society know. Ni Yuli smiled and said, according to your battle in the human world, I quickly analyzed the characteristics and methods of this old man's attack, so I specially developed props for other worlds. Ni Yuli started the operation next. He used a few things like smoke bombs to spread out in the surrounding space, this way you can see the ripples in the space. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Buzz. Generally speaking, the spatial fluctuations that cannot be seen are so obvious in this smoke, as if the ripples in the stormy sea were transferred to the calm pond. Luokan already knew Paula's location through the system, but he didn't expect Nomori to have such a convenient device. It's up to me now. Luokan had just defeated two soul hunters, and the credit for the third one could not be robbed by others. Since Ni Yuli has a way to find Paula, there must be a way to get rid of it. In order to avoid this situation, Luo Chen attacked first. Luokan's Zanpakuto unsheathed and pulled Paula's huge body out of the alien space. Paula was attacked inexplicably and did not respond for a while. Boom! The huge body fell to the ground, and Zedu was also a little flustered by this change, because the attack routine he had always used was so easily broken. 100 million. Chapter 1132. Zedu and Paula were embarrassed to break the escape method, and the surprise in their hearts showed on their faces. You guys, how is this possible? But Luokan wouldn't give him a chance to turn the tables, so he directly pursued the victory and slashed towards Paula with the Zanpakuto in his hand. Paula's huge body could not dodge the knife, but this knife did not constitute a serious injury to Paula's huge body. The key point is 387. Zedu and Paula readjusted their states, and the two sides were deadlocked again, no one moved. The first wave of trials just now had been completed. With a wave of Zedu's hands, the surrounding spirits quickly gathered towards him and Paula. After a while, no matter what it was, even the scratches on Zedu's clothes were completely repaired. Don't take it too far. Luokan saw this and knew that unless he used an attack that exceeded the repair line or caused the doll to backlash, there shouldn't be a good way. How is it, you two? Do you feel the difference in strength between us? Although I may have been beaten badly by you guys, but in a flash, the wine can be restored as before, and your injuries are not so bad. Is it easy? Luokan didn't panic. He knew that Paula's real attack was not to use a powerful body to hit, but to use the abyss's huge mouth to devour. Jue, find the opportunity and give him a few beast-tailed beast jades. I don't believe he won't get the trick this time. Luo Chen commanded secretly. Jue wagged his tail, indicating he understood. Ni Yuli also joined the battle, but the occupation did not reverse much. The few people ran and fought, and soon they were a long way from the original battle site. It was only at this time that Ni Yuli reacted. That old man, I didn't expect to be misled by him. We are heading towards the central area of the spirit court. I can't help it. I can't keep my hands anymore. Ni Yuri shouted loudly, and pulled out his zanpakuto from his waist. Solution. Kill Jizo with the golden scorpion. As soon as he finished speaking, Ni Yuli's solution had been released, and behind him a big-headed doll with a height of several meters appeared, which was extremely strange. Luo Chen said with disgust, "This is your solution. With all due respect, Chinban Sakura looks better." Of course. That guy Kuchiki is recognized by the world of dismantling corpses. But my Jizo is even more powerful. Ni Yuli ordered, "Poison gas attack." A large amount of purple-black gas was ejected from the air of Jizo, and it didn't seem to be a safe thing. As long as you are touched by this thing, you are finished. Zedu smiled and said, "My Paula's devouring ability is not guaranteed." Paula swallowed him. Luokan's eyes lit up and he shouted, "It's now." If Paula wants to swallow the poison gas, she must open her mouth without any scruples, and this is the moment Luo Chen and Nine Tails have been waiting for. A large-tailed beast jade brewed out of Juwei's mouth, which was even bigger than the one used in the human world. Did Juwei take the lead before Zedu could react? 4.5. The poisonous gas was wrapped in the tailed beast jade and was swallowed by Paula in one breath. It's too late for Zedu to avoid it. The defeat in this battle has already been decided. Luokan made a detonating gesture with his left hand, looking at Zedu's desperate eyes. Everything happened in an instant, as the Nine Tails roared. Boom. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1133. Go here. Luo Chen took the lead, leading Ichigo and Chato to the depths of the Technical Research Bureau. They didn't know what Karya wanted to do here. Under normal circumstances, wouldn't the enemy who wants to invade the Spirit Garden go to the Commander-in-Chief for a decisive battle? Why would they forget this place to drill? Ichigo asked curiously. Luokan guessed. It's very likely that Karya's goal at the beginning was something from the technical administration. After all, the Soul Hunter was the previous technical administrator, a product of the administration. Is this the so-called homesickness of 22? Luokan joked, but Ichigo and Chadu completely ignored it and were instead said, "Mr. Luokan, now is a critical moment, you are too nervous." Luokan curled his lips, but did not answer, but brought the topic back. Here, Karya is inside. Everyone was full of energy and looked at the destroyed wall in front. This is the main entrance, and the sign hanging on it has long been torn apart. It seems that Karya entered through pure violence. Karya, what do you want to do here? What do you want? Ichigo rushed in, raised his zanpakuto to Karya, and Chadu rushed in, without saying a word, just watch. It was only after Luo Chen's entry that Karya lifted his spirits a little. I didn't expect that you guys would be able to follow me here. It's too late, you can't stop me. This room is a very wide space. The surrounding walls are all covered with safes, like a library. They are neatly arranged, and the top cannot be seen upwards. The three of them were too lazy to talk nonsense with him. Ichigo opened the solution. Chadu and Luokan did not show weakness, and rushed towards Karya. The wind was blowing beside Karya, and a large number of spirits were gathered together. Kyuubi circled to Karya's back early and launched an attack, but the attack of several people was difficult to advance half a minute in front of the wind's barrier, and even Luo Chen's slash was repeatedly blocked. Luokan, I used to be in awe of you, and so was Kuchiki Byakuya, but it will be different now. I will become an invincible existence in the soul realm. What? Under the attack of the crowd, Karya's figure flashed. The figure standing there blurred and disappeared. A puff of smoke rose, and Luo Chen could feel a powerful spiritual pressure appear under the ground. Luo Chen swung out his zanpakuto. The powerful wind pressure smoke dissipated. Nine Tails climbed up Luo Chen's arrow, and everyone looked into the cave in unison. I saw a big hole in the floor of this room. It was the hole that Karya successfully opened with the help of everyone's strength, and the spiritual pressure inside spread out one after another. Karya was already bare-armed, Standing on the illuminated coat of arms, the blood-red coat of arms was particularly dazzling, exuding a disturbing light. The coat of arms and Karya resonated, and they began to reconcile themselves, and then a powerful Reiatsu entered Karya's body from the coat of arms, and the same forehead coat of arms pattern appeared on the upper body of Karya, which looked like weird. What is this? Luo Chen also didn't understand. What exactly is this article? It seems to be a rune that enhances power. It seems that you haven't understood the seriousness of the matter, so I'll tell you. All the power has flowed into Karya's body. He feels that his body is now filled with infinite power, and his back is straighter and stiffer when he speaks. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1134. This coat of arms is called the Jingji Seal. It is the endless energy that was sealed after the failure to study the soul hunters. This thing originally belonged to our soul hunters. I just came to get it back. Endless. Luo Chen frowned. He was like a cheater, but he didn't expect that there was another cheater that was even more powerful. Karya smiled and said, actually, it's not endless, but it's more than enough to destroy the soul world. There are 10 others in the soul world that are the same as this coat of arms. I will control these to explode together to ensure that the soul world will be destroyed. Disappear from the world. After finishing speaking, Karya didn't delay. With a flash, a gust of wind blew by, and his figure disappeared from everyone's sight. Luo Chen scratched his head, knowing that this time, the soul world had another major event. If there are only these soul hunters, the old man's strength and the captain's can do it, but this time it's a bit big tilde. What should I do now? Ichigo and Chadu looked at Luokan, completely stunned by Karya's big plan. Their heads went blank, knowing that just fighting now really can't solve too many problems. Luokan instructed, now you will meet with the others first, and tell them about the situation here. I have one last thing to deal with. XXX. Yes, Mr. Luokan also needs to take care, isn't that Karya crazy? Ichigo and Chadu left the Technical Research Bureau, and Luokan and Kuo soon left the Technical Bureau. Kuya, this guy is quite ambitious. I don't care about him now. I don't know what will happen to his Jingji chapter. I won't fight an unprepared battle. Luokan plans to watch the Battle of Korea first, to know himself and his enemy. Well, there's still the last soul hunter other than Karya. Get rid of him first to save trouble. Luo Chen planned to get rid of them all first. At the same time, Hitsugaya has returned from Lu Chen's destination, and he and Matsumoto Renku are chasing the trail of a soul hunter. Yo, isn't this Renji? Did you find it? Matsumoto Ranju waved his hand to let him come over when he saw Renji, and then saw the little thing on his shoulder. Isn't this a ghost? Before the Tibetan man could speak, Renji said first, we are looking for soul hunters, but I'm just powerless by myself. Hitsugaya said, Diaresis it's easy to do, just let my team members spread out and surround them. I remember that Mimic Soul can track their Reiatsu, right? One shot immediately, everyone dispersed, surrounded the entire large area, and prepared to investigate little by little according to the Tibetans' instructions. But after looking around, Koga showed up directly. Let me go, I still have my own business to do. Hitsugaya Toshiro bumped into someone who was right. I won't let you pass, isn't your business to destroy the soul world? Koga shook his head and said, I want to stop Karya, his ambition is obviously to deceive us. After hearing that, Hitsugaya still didn't give way. Then how do I know if you're lying to me? Koga was helpless, took a long sigh of relief, and said, since it doesn't make sense, let me use brute force to break through. Come on, Daruku. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1135. Daruku. Come on, Koga shouted, don't you think it's dangerous to deal with two people at the same time? This sentence should be said to you in reverse, right? Luo Chen came behind Koga and said casually. Koga hurriedly dodged, and the completed knife didn't hit him. I won't lose now, even if I was suppressed miserably by you at that time, but this is the soul realm, and the boost I got is enough to deal with the captain-level death god. Luokan said indifferently, I've heard this sentence from every soul hunter. Why did you memorize the lines in advance? Koga asked. Did you say so? Have you met my clansmen? Then. Luokan grabbed Koga's words and said, of course I defeated them all, and then the next one is to pinch them. Daruku, come on, I won't be defeated so easily by you. Koga gave instructions to Daruku. Their strength was indeed a bit stronger than that of the human world, and Daruku's strength rose by a notch. I saw Daruku's body fully stretched out, but the shape gradually became invisible from the original human shape, and finally extended into the surrounding space, forming a huge cage, combining Luokan and Dongshilang. Surrounded by it. Ha ha ha, how are you two handsome young men? You have no way to turn the tables, so obediently be defeated by me. As soon as Daruku finished speaking, several spikes appeared on its body, extending towards the inside and starting to shoot continuously. Tushiro and Luokan had to take out the Zanpakuto to defend. In front of such a high-speed moving target, Ninetails didn't have time to brew the fireball, so she could only lie on Luokan's shoulder, planning to take the opportunity to attack Koga. The two of them managed to break through, and they were slightly exhausted. Daruku is a steel doll, so his endurance is also very strong. In this respect, it is even more difficult than Machao's doll. Isn't this move really able to trap you? But forget it, without that guy in my steel body, it wouldn't be so easy to break down. Daruku's body transformed into a blade, which seemed to be extremely sharp, comparable to Zanpakuto. Luo-chen and Tushiro rushed up, and everyone had to fight with at least 3 blades. Deadlocked. There's no other way. Luokan, please get out of the way, I'm going to open up. At the same time, Luo-chen also shouted, there's no other way. Hitsugaya, you step back first. Ninetails will recruit him. Both sides make moves at the same time. On one side is Toshiro's dissolution, the absolute cold invades. Like the opposite version of the fire, the power can be ranked in the top 3 at the captain level. On this side, the 9-tailed fireball on Luokan's shoulder has been launched from his mouth, combined with the 9-tailed in Chung-chung's hand. This move is a fire blade. The ice blade is extremely cold, and the surrounding spirits are instantly frozen and lose their vitality. This trick can freeze everything. The flaming blade swept the flames, like hell karma fire. With the power of tailed beast jade, coupled with the power of falling dust, it burned everything. Click. Boom. Daruku was surrounded by a sea of ice and fire and was baptized by extreme cold and scorching heat. Even if his body was made of steel, he couldn't stand it. Boom. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1136. With a cracking sound, Daruku's body shattered into countless pieces and fell on the ground, some of which turned into ice, and some turned into ashes. Before Koga could react, he was bombarded by the aftermath of the explosion and flew several meters away. He raised his head and looked at the disintegrating Daruku, his eyes slowly filled with unwillingness and anger. When the smoke cleared, Luo-chen said to Koga, "It's time to catch up now, right?" Koga stood up again and said, "You think Daruku is dead?" "No, it's not yet, it's still alive, you can feel its last anger." After speaking, Koga waved his hand, and Daruku, who had been turned into pieces, actually moved again, sweeping the surrounding spirits back into Koga's hands. The two were taken aback, but Daruku did not resurrect, but turned into an axe and returned to Koga's hand. The process wasn't over yet. Koga continued to absorb the spirits around him until his aura reached its peak, and the spirit pressure burst out, causing Luokan and Tushilang to stumble. This guy, how did the Reiatsu increase so much? Hitsugaya Toshiro was like a formidable enemy. Luokan waved his hand and said, "Leave this to me. You go back first and gather with Ichigo and the others, and there will be more difficult enemies later. Dongshilang shook his head and said, "He is not easy to deal with, very tenacious." Koga heard the words and asked, "You said just now that the more difficult enemy is Karya, right? It's only the 2 of us left, but I'm going to stop him too. I can't tell whether you are an enemy or a friend now." Besides, there are still gods of death. It's of no use if you go. Then you can only push hard. Daruku, use your strength once again. Koga held a hatchet, and the reiatsu on his body exploded in an instant. The wind pressure lifted all the surrounding ground, and it was full of destructive power. You can imagine how terrifying the magnitude of the force on his axe. But Luokan is not to be outdone. His Zanpakudo, 9 tails, is no less than Zanpaku Kenpachi's. Coupled with his own strength, there is no rival in the Soul Society. Boom! Koga rushes at a high speed, and the high speed makes the impact a layer, but Luokan's spiritual pressure is not covered. The huge spiritual pressure causes Koga to drop sharply when entering the field of Luokan's spiritual pressure, like entering a quagmire. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. However, up to now, we can only go straight ahead, and there is no option to go back. Luokan waved the blade from behind him. It seemed that the very slow speed carried a huge amount of energy. The delayed blade was actually an afterimage. In an instant, the blade of the axe collided with the blade of the blade. A fierce collision erupted instantly on the spot. The ground sank several feet high, and the 9 tails lying on Luo Chen's shoulder were blown away and landed on the ground more than 10 meters away. 0. Cut. Koga is the last fight to break the cauldron and sink the boat, and his own strength is not comparable to Luokan. The momentum of the Zanpakudo in Luokan's hand has been strengthened again and again, and finally Koga's axe has been shattered and turned into nothingness in the powerful spiritual pulse. Koga himself should not be knocked into the air by the dust. He is embedded in the middle. This level of injury has exceeded the upper limit of self-healing, and Koga passed out in a coma. Toshiro's eyes widened. He understood the horror of Luokan's strength. Luokan said, "Tell the medical team to come, let's go to meet with the main force. There is a more difficult carrier behind, we can't afford to waste time." 100 million. Chapter 1137. After a while, everyone finally gathered in a meeting room in the Spirit Court. It has been less than a day or two since the last time they were separated, but after the battle, everyone was a little tired. But now is not the time to rest, the next time is the most important time, and it is also the key to the victory of the entire battle. What happened to the Jingji chapter? Luokan asked Luokan and Chadu Road. Now that the soul world can no longer despise soul hunters, otherwise it is very likely that they will not know how they died. Well, all the captains know about the Pure World chapter, and now they are mobilizing all their staff to find Karya and the rest of the Pure World chapter, but I'm afraid it's too late. Ichigo said, his face full of worry. Luokan said, there is only one way now. This way is the most direct and the most difficult. What is it? Hitsugaya asked. After seeing Luokan's powerful strength, he was already impressed by Luokan, and now he wanted to hear Luokan's opinion. That is to defeat Karya directly. Before he can activate all the Pure World chapters and cause more damage, defeat Karya. Luo Chen said calmly, which made everyone in the room gasp. Cool advice. It's not that others didn't think of it, they also thought about it, but they didn't propose it specifically, because it was too whimsical. It's hard to estimate Karya's strength now. Nimayuri said, before, I speculated that his true strength would be as high as 2 captains. However, Luo Chen said, according to my experience of Reiatsu after he obtained the Medal of Purity, his power has far surpassed the teamwork of the 2 captains. Orihime asked, in addition to his infinite spiritual child absorption ability, how can such a person be defeated? Luokan thought about all the elements that could be used now, and said, but let all the captains join forces, but now the captains are busy maintaining the affairs of various regions, and it is difficult to get out. Luokan's eyes looked at everyone, and suddenly his eyes lit up. I thought about it, besides looking for Karya, you also look for Landau. That's right. When we came, he said that we need to prepare a little bit to deal with soul hunters. There must be some way. Ichigo exclaimed. Luo Chen's figure flashed and said, I'll leave these things to you. I'll go find Kariya and try to hold him back. Ishida Yulong and Ichigo hurriedly followed. Although they didn't think they could catch up with Luokan, they still trot along the raya. At the same time, Kariya has quietly come to the commanding heights of the entire spiritual courtyard, overlooking the entire spiritual courtyard. No matter where it is, there is a lot of noise. Hee, just struggle hard for this last hope. If I don't have enough of the purification chapter in my body, I will soon complete the charge. By that time, the entire spirit court should be destroyed. What you are doing now is just a struggle before death. That's not necessarily true, Kariya. This sentence happened to be heard by Landau, who is chasing Kariya all the way. She approached Kariya calmly, not caring that her combat power was completely incomparable to Kariya. But the things in his arms gave her confidence. She knew that if she didn't act rashly now, Kariya wouldn't really kill her. Chapter 1138. Who came to me at that time? It was you, Landau. How could you be in such a good mood to climb high and look into the distance, watching the destruction of the spiritual court? It seems that we may have the same interests. Before Landau could reply, Luo Chen's voice had already arrived. It's just that there is nowhere to find a place to break through the iron shoes. It didn't take much effort to get it. I didn't expect the two of you to be together. Luokan, you can't stop me anymore. I know that you may have hidden combat power beyond the captain's level, implying that I now have the chapter 22 of the pure world. What can you do to me? As long as you are defeated before the Jingjijiang is blasted, there is nothing to be afraid of in this Jingjijiang. Luo Chen said calmly, without even looking at it. The Nine Tails followed suit. Then you can come and try it. Kariya wrapped his hands around the violently swirling wind, posing an attacking stance, and the whole person floated up. Kiyue, you support him. Let me and him have two moves. Luo Chen plans to stop hiding his strength, so let the Nine Tails stay far away to get rid of the air. Buzz. The reiatsu around the two vibrated, like a resonance. Luo Chen rushed up and pressed Kariya firmly to the ground. Landau, don't use it now, when will you wait? Luo Chen roared, and Landau and Kariya were both taken aback. Before Ya noticed something was wrong, her body moved before her consciousness. A dagger slashed fiercely through Kariya's body. Kariya was in pain, struggling to brush the two away, and Luo Chen hugged Landau, who flew out, and landed safely. You bastard, are you really trying to plot against me? But this little injury is just underestimating me. Although Luo Chen didn't know what trump card Landau was here for, there was no doubt that Landau's desire to fight against soul hunters was unchanged, so Luo Chen just finished such a move just now. Never find the time again. So, what the hell is that? How come Kariya has nothing to do with it? Luokan was at a loss as he watched Kariya heal the wound just now. Landau said mysteriously, you'll find out later. The battle between the two continued, and the ground 100 meters away began to crack. It was hard to imagine how strong the reiatsu was around the two who were the center of the battle. Eat my Nine Tails. Luo Chen swung the sword from the left and hit Kariya's arm, but the wind quickly pushed Zanpakuto out, and the wound was healing. It's not over yet. Luo Chen switched the Zanpakuto to his left hand and cut it from the top right. Kariya laughed contemptuously, because such an attack was completely ineffective. But the aura of Luokan's left foot exploded instantly, sinking the ground several inches. Kariya staggered, and he had to spread his hands to keep his balance, but he had to resist the blade. Miscalculation. Ding. Ichino stood in front of Luokan and said, I can't let you go half a step forward after this. Kariya then got a chance to breathe. There seemed to be an obstacle, but Luokan really couldn't break through in a short time, but at this time, Ichigo and Ishida Yulong just arrived. XXX. The two of them looked at each other, nodded, and immediately rushed up to disrupt Ichino's attack. Mr. Luokan, Ichino's is handed over to us, and Kariya will ask you. Chapter 1139. The episode has passed. Ichigo, Ishida Yuryu, and Ichinos are fighting hard to the side, while Luokan and Carrier are also at a stalemate. Now I have to show you my true strength. Carrier Yingxi smiled, and at that moment it seemed that Luo Chen was worthless. Luo Chen clenched the 9 tails Zanpakudo in his hand, and did not speak. The next moment, Carrier's whole body began to burst out with an incomparably strong spiritual pressure, a huge spiritual pressure compared to Kuchiki Byakuya and Zaraki Kenpachi. To put it bluntly, with such strength, half of the captain's level might not necessarily be able to defeat him. Carrier enjoyed the skyrocketing strength, and the corners of his mouth were filled with joy. Then his spiritual pressure began to condense, and it was continuously tempered and sublimated, forming a beam of light around him, which was extremely dazzling, and the energy inside was even more than dissolution. Sure enough, I really don't know what Carrier's true strength was just now, but I don't know if my attack worked. Landau nervously looked at Carrier, who was reaching the peak of his strength, thinking worriedly. Swish, swish, swish. Moment. A storm begins to form on Carrier's hands. That is not an ordinary wind, but it has exceeded a limit. A sword appeared on Carrier's right hand, attached, and a blade made of wind appeared on it. This is the true face of my doll, Meisha, show her true strength tilde. Carrier pointed the blade in his hand at Luokan. Luokan smiled and said, no matter what, your wind is nothing but wind, it's just that the energy has increased, and it's over when I block it for you. Carrier shook his head and said, you'd be wrong to think this way. My ability is never just the wind. I can only say that the wind is an outward expression. What? Just as he was talking, the speed of the wind on the blade in Carrier's hand increased by a step again, reaching the limit, and then thunder and lightning were actually generated in it. The entire sword was wrapped in thunder and lightning, from the original sword of wind to the sword of thunder and lightning. Haha, falling dust, the speed of the wind is not fast, no matter how fast it is. There is a limit, but thunder and lightning are different. Wind, that is, the positive electricity generated by the constant friction of the atmospheric spirits, can you react? Just let you taste it. Luokan looked at Carrier waving the sword in his hand at will, and the thunder and lightning on it began to stir restlessly, escaped in unison, and then attacked Luokan. The bowl-shaped lightning strikes the surrounding ground, instantly becoming bumpy. This is because Carrier can control the power and use the main energy to attack the dust. Luo Chen quickly did not sit in the movement of every lightning bolt. He swung the Zanpakudo in his hand, and scattered the surrounding lightning one after another, but there were still several lightning bolts that hit Luo Chen. The smoke dissipated, and the dust settled again. Diaresis fortunately, those few waves just now were only small aftermaths, but they were really painful. Seeing that Hao Nuo Zhao fell into the dust, Carrier smiled and said, haha, even if you can see it, can you keep up with the speed of my lightning? Luokan raised the knife again and said, oh, these lightnings are also attacked by your consciousness, right? Do you think it's fine as long as my reaction can't keep up with the lightning? Luokan made a negative gesture and said, as long as your reaction can't keep up with my speed, these problems will not be a problem. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1140. What? Carrier was taken aback. He didn't expect Luokan to think backwards. This was a cracking move he never thought of. Cut. Luokan's body stretched out in space, like a bolt of lightning. In just an instant, he disappeared from Carrier. This is it. Shunbu. No, it looks like it, but it's not. Carrier stayed where he was, swallowed, and didn't dare to move his footsteps, because Luokan had just disappeared. Call out. Where is the sound? Carrier heard a movement, but the sound seemed to be coming from all directions. The thunder blade in his hand no longer waved, but quietly caught the wind and grass around him. The sound is getting closer. Cold sweat broke out on Carrier's body, looking at Ichino's 400 and Ichigo who were still fighting beside him, and Ran Island watching the battle. Panic filled his heart. The enemy is not scary, just be afraid that the enemy can cause damage to you in an invisible place, just like a silent assassin. Here it is. Luokan's roar came from above Karia's head. Karia looked up and saw a black shadow in the middle of the sun rapidly approaching. Karia only had time to carry out a simple defense, and Luo Chen's attack had already arrived. The super acceleration using Reiatsu combined with gravity and Luo Chen's attack caused Karia's thunderblade to break with a bang. Boom! The two sides collided violently, causing the entire battlefield to sink as high as one person, and dense cracks began to appear in the entire rock mass. The smoke soared high into the sky, as if an explosion had occurred. Cough cough. Haruya stood up from the ruins. His chest had been severely slashed. He and Luo Chen looked at each other. I admit that you are very powerful, but it's useless. In the soul world we are soul hunters are invincible as long as... Karia suddenly widened his eyes and said incredulously, "It's impossible, why can't you absorb the spiritual child for treatment? There must be something wrong." It turned out to be you, Lan Dao. I just said that the knife was not painful or itchy, and it was useless. I underestimated you, and that attack actually made my healing ability invalid. Karia suddenly thought of Lan Dao's attack. Looked at Lan Dao viciously. Luokan took a step and stood in front of Lan Dao, and said to Karia, "That means, you are no longer invincible, right? At least I don't have to work too hard. If the injury just now can be cured quickly, well, I'm troubled too." Looking at Luokan who was approaching step by step, Karia began to slowly retreat, but his eyes were erratic, as if he was thinking about something in his heart. At this moment, Yoichi and Kuchiki Byakuya arrived, and they both let out a sigh of relief when they saw that the battle seemed to have come to an end. Yi Yi happily said to Luokan, "Luokan, all the seals of the soul realm have been found and reinforced with ghosts. Karia can no longer detonate." When Karia heard these words, the thoughts in his heart became more and more firm, his body actually stood still, and a smile appeared on his face again, his aura once again returned to the peak, and the spiritual pressure that erupted on his body was no less than before. Lan Dao first saw Karia's strangeness and warned, "Luokan, be careful, he intends to never die, that power. That is the seal of purity on his body." Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1141. Cut. Luo Chen rushed to Shu's front earlier than Ichigo, and was cut in half, and the entire Shu lost his fighting ability and slowly disappeared. "Hey, Luokan, how can you rob me of something? Besides, I'm an agent of the god of death, you are not someone who can rob agents." Ichigo stomped his feet in anger. Although Baguo was eliminated in the end, Ichigo was not convinced. After all, he felt that Luokan was not a few years older than him, and his strength was much stronger than himself. It has become more and more backward. Luo Chen put on an indifferent expression, and Ninetails raised his head proudly, roaring a few times, saying, "We will take care of all the emptiness in this place in the future." Originally, Luokan didn't have to grab Ichigo's combat experience, but who told him to upgrade his system? The news from the new system has rekindled his fighting spirit. You get 100 for every phantom you beat. If you earn points, you will get 1000 if you are in a virtual state, and so on. Completing the main quest will also get corresponding rewards. You can use the points to exchange things in the system. You must do your best. The system will stop talking after leaving this sentence, and let Luokan be immersed in the points mall. "I'm really sorry, Ichigo, but in the future, if this place is empty, I will eat 90% of it and keep 10% for you. It's enough loyalty." Luo Chen thought in his heart. Chadu and Oriji were still surrounded when they saw it. Ichigo, who glared at each other between Luo Chen and Ninetails, breathed a sigh of relief. "It's a peaceful everyday life," the two exclaimed. Not far away, Hiriko Mako hid behind the building and looked at Luokan and the others. "I finally found it. I don't know if it will go well. I won't back down until you agree. After all, we are the same kind." The time came to the second day. Luokan and Ichigo came to the school very often to take classes. Are they going to defeat the ghost that endangered the human world? Life should have been so easy. "Okay, everyone, we're going to have a transfer student today." The teacher walked into the classroom and announced that all the students were quiet. The male god wanted a beautiful girl, and the girl wanted to be a handsome new classmate. Luo Chen obviously didn't have much interest in this, but he noticed the invisible Reiatsu at the door and frowned. Interested in this new student. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. Then, the door opened, and a boy with short hair walked in. Come and invite this new classmate to introduce himself. 00. He used his left hand to write 4 reverse characters on the blackboard from the left to the left, and everyone read it for a while before reading the order correctly, Hirako Mako. The classmates knew that it was another weirdo, a new classmate who was even more to blame than Luo Chen, and soon became the side of Luo Chen and Ichigo. Luokan didn't take it lightly. He clearly felt that this guy could come to Ichigo. Could it be that the gods of death are attracted to each other? This guy should also be a god of death. I don't know what his purpose is. Although Hirako Mako did have the idea of deliberately approaching Ichigo, he was not in a hurry. He knew how to step by step and stalk him. 100 million. Chapter 1142. A day of life passed quickly. At night, Luokan and Ichigo were playing games together when a burst of spiritual pressure came. The two looked at each other and knew that there was a phantom appearing, and the Soul Society also gave a notice. Let's go. Fallen, then I think there will be a fair competition this time. Whoever defeats first will be defeated. There is no such thing as a first comer problem. Ichigo suggested. Okay, interesting. Let's go. Luo Chen agreed. 403. Call out. The two figures dashed from the roof to and fro. Luo Chen and Ichigo landed on a house. Right here, there was a phantom in front of them. Go ahead. Before Ichigo could pull out the sword, Luo Chen had already picked up the sword and dropped it, and directly used Shiji to split Tsuji into 2 halves, dissipating in the air. How come you are still ahead of me, so how can I become stronger? Next time, at least leave it to me next time. I'm an acting death god. Ichigo wanted to accuse Luokan of all kinds behavior. At this moment, another death god's spirit pressure finally came to an end. The two of them looked behind them and saw that another death god appeared, and he had a new face. Hey, 2 boys, where are you from? Why do I feel like a stranger? The god of death on the opposite side looked like an uncle, and he was pretending to be a mess, and the aura of Zanpakuto was not very strong. Who are you? I am the representative of the god of death. Ichigo replied. Ah, acting for the god of death. Why haven't I heard of it? He looked at Ichigo and Luokan, as if his prey was being robbed. Let's show you the proxy token awarded to me by Soul Society. Ichigo proved his proxy death to the other party, who frowned and laughed. Ha ha ha, don't bully me for being ignorant. I was transferred from the soul realm to the human realm anyway. I've never seen this thing in spirit court. Neither of you are serious gods of death, right? Luokan shook his head, knowing that if this goes on, the guy in front of him will never stop making things difficult, so he has to show his token. This token is much more beautiful than Ichigo's. It is the token of the acting captain that Yuanlujai specially gave to Luokan. It contains Yuanlujai's determination to win over Luokan. How can he not be sad? The other party looked at the token and was dazed for a few seconds, then reached out to take it and looked at it carefully. Luo Chen hurriedly took it back. At this time, the other party just woke up like a dream, and he took a few steps back, respectfully, and made a trembling voice. Ah, yes. It's the captain. I have little eyes and no pearls, and I ask the captain to forgive me. This land card is just. I'll leave it to you. Luokan nodded and said, tell your immediate captain, let him tell the captain, and ask him to redivide the area in charge of human world. Ichigo and I want this place. Yes. It's none of your business here, you go first. Hearing this sentence, the other party was relieved and fled in a hurry. He felt that the pressure of Luo Chen was as real as fighting against a big virtual, and he broke out in a cold sweat. Why does your token work, but I don't? Strange. Ichigo speaking to themselves, the two were ready to go back. At this moment, a sword shadow suddenly appeared, reflecting the moonlight. Ichigo reacted quickly and blocked the sword. Luo Chen dispelled the oppressive Reiatsu, waved his hand and asked, "What are you doing, classmate Hirako Mako?" Chapter 1143. Hirako Mako. Ichigo could also see the face of the visitor. It was the transfer student who had just transferred over recently. He was still wearing his school uniform, but his temperament was completely different. There has to be a back and forth. The two sides took a step back together, and the tentative attack just now stopped. Luo Chen stood in the middle of the two, because he knew that Hirako Mako was heading for Ichigo, but he didn't seem to be paying attention to him. "Hello, Ichigo-san," Hirako Mako said with a smile, showing her extremely white teeth, which seemed harmless to humans and animals, but 22 Luokan could feel that he was no less than a captain-level Reiki. Luokan instructed Jue to sneak around behind Hirako Mako and surround him. Luokan searched his memory and hadn't seen such a god of death, so he remained vigilant. "Mr. Luokan, are you Ichigo's guardian?" "Well, I'll make it clear." Hirako Mako went straight to the subject. After all, he came here with this goal in mind. "Kurosaki Ichigo, do you want to join us?" "What?" Ichigo was sulking because Hirako Mako regarded Luokan as his person in charge, but he didn't expect that Hirako Mako would throw him a clueless olive branch. "Join? Who are you?" Luokan asked, thinking that it wouldn't be another mysterious organization like the Soul Hunters. "Then I'll just say it directly. Our organization is the Masquerade Army," Hirako Mako said calmly. "Tonight is destined to be a wonderful night." When Ishida Yulong was out shopping, he noticed that something was following him. Sure enough, he smelled Ishida Yulong's seductive soul fragrance, and he couldn't help it any longer, showing his figure. XXX. In the past, Ishida Yulong was still able to deal with it, but now his power as a Quincy has basically disappeared, and he was in crisis, so he could only run while fighting back with limited strength. "Trouble, I didn't expect that I would be forced to this point now. Move me, my strength has disappeared, what should I do now?" Ishida Yulong had no other way, so he could only find life under Shu's pursuit, hoping to escape Shu's pursuit. On the other side, after Ichigo was deified, Soul took the opportunity to get into Ichigo's body, but his luck was not very good, and he found the virtual attack as soon as he went out. "Why are you looking for me?" Soul screamed and moved quickly between the cities, but the virtual was still able to quickly catch up and not fall behind at all. "Ichigo Kurosaki, Ichigo Kurosaki. You made a mistake, I'm not Ichigo." "Wait, you were the one Ichigo defeated on the mountain at that time, how could you be here?" Soul recognized the true face of this ghost, and killed Ichigo. "The one who protects his mother. You can't fool me." The pursuit of the two continued. Masquerade Army. Luokan had never heard of such an organization. "Then I'll show you guys directly." Hirako Mako raised his hand above his head, and the spirits began to gather in his hand, but after a while, in the blink of an eye, a pale mask appeared in his hand. "That's it," Ichigo exclaimed. How could he not recognize this mask? It was something that would appear on his face after he became blurred. Ichigo was so surprised that he subconsciously touched his cheek. Chapter 1144. You understand. We are a family. Join us. Luokan refused. Ichigo will not join. I understand that his purpose of becoming a god of death is not to form gangs. He wants to protect relatives and friends. You don't know him. Ichigo nodded and looked at Luokan as if he was looking at a reliable mountain. He said, "Yes, I won't join you. Besides, this ability." Boom. Two huge spiritual pressures came from a distance, and the three of them felt it. Hirako Mako said with a smile, "Oh, who is this?" Luokan looked at Ichigo. He knew that Ichigo's ability to perceive spiritual pressure was weaker, but he had already sensed it, and one of them was Shu who had fought before. And it's very powerful. You guys stay here and don't move around, I'll come when I go. Luo Chen went immediately. He let the Nine Tails stay where he was, with Ichigo, and let me know if something was wrong, although Luokan knew that Hirako Mako would not hurt Ichigo. After a few short steps, Luokan felt that he was getting close. On the spacious street, Yi Tilda Guard was running and hiding, and behind him was a humanoid figure. This Shu is not ordinary. But that Ichigo is that boy of soul, forget it, I'll go and help him. Luo Chen dodged and arrived in front of Soul. Originally, Soul had already fallen to the ground, and Shu's next attack would hit him, but Luo Chen helped him block him. Are you alright? Ah, Mr. Luokan, I'm almost exhausted, and those three guys can't help much. Soul cried. Hiding aside at this time, the three of Lilin, Tibetan and Ziba emerged from the green belt. They knew that Luokan was coming, so there was nothing to worry about. Lilin retorted, Soul, you wicked guy who sues first, don't we think of a way for you? Let you bring Shu over, we are surrounding him. Before Lilin could finish speaking, Luo Chen threw her soul aside and said, you all stay on the side, I'll leave it here, although I don't know what's going on with this virtual. Ichigo Kurosaki, Ichigo Kurosaki. It was still roaring, as if it would never be satisfied. Luo Chen crossed the knife and said, you really recognize the wrong person. He is not Ichigo, so don't go looking for him, because you will never have a chance again. Roll. The thick tentacles of the virtual slammed over, and the impact was very huge, just like the king squid in the sea facing the clownfish, as oppressive. Diaresis, are you talking to me? Luokan turned the blade without hesitation, a powerful spiritual force attached to it, and a blade composed of spiritual power formed, severing the entire tentacle quickly. Ah, damn it, don't obstruct me. Does this matter have anything to do with you? I just want Kurosaki Ichigo's life. Is that something to do with me? A figure appeared behind Luo Chen. Luo Chen smiled slightly, of course he knew who the person was and gave up his seat. Luokan, thank you very much. Kurosaki Yixin appeared from the shadow, and he was different from the past. Now, he was wearing a death tyrant suit that he hadn't worn for many years, with a zanpakuto hanging around his waist, which made him even more handsome. Luokan nodded. He thought that it would be best for Kurosaki to solve this problem. After all, this is a grudge and a knot in the heart. Ellipsis. Chapter 1145. Luokan gave up his seat, and Kurosaki Yixin slowly walked in front of Shu. Without anger, he finally saw the Shu who took his wife's life more than 10 years ago, but now he is extremely calm. Huh, who are you? The Shu sneered, it has something to do with you. But I don't think you can beat me. His eyes swept back and forth between Luo Chen and Kurosaki Yixin's zanpakuto, and in his heart he had already classified the two people in front of him into the indifferent category of rabble. Where are you looking? Luo Chen saw through this fake eye at a glance, and said, are you looking at our zanpakuto? Haha, you actually saw through it. That's right, I know it. The stronger the spiritual power, the bigger the zanpakuto. As soon as he finished speaking, he took out his knife from behind. Its huge body was slightly smaller in front of him, and the width of the knife was as long as a person. If it was cut, even an armored vehicle would not be able to survive being split in half. But, what kind of small pocket toys are your zanpakuto? Let's not talk about that, guys. Your sword is just a dagger, right? He mocked Kurosaki with one heart. Luokan and Kurosaki looked at each other wholeheartedly and almost laughed, but Luokan just said, you can try. That Shu was provoked. Do you look down on me? It's too late to talk about it. Shu is already hungry and thirsty. He wants to devour the souls of everyone in front of him and then slowly torture Ichigo. The huge blade is like a meteorite falling from the sky, smashing it directly from behind, and the wind pressure generated makes the surrounding trees rustle and leaves fly. But before the knife fell, Kurosaki Yixin, who was in between, quickly pulled out the dagger from his waist, just for a moment, like the sun that suddenly shone from the skyline in the dark night, shining. The next moment, This virtual was interrupted into 2 sections with an incredible look on his face. Even if he didn't hold a knife for 20 years, he did it in one go. Let me tell you one thing, Shu, captain-level people have the ability to control the size of their Zanpakuto. You are too superficial. If not, every captain would have to hold a building like a mansion. The Zanpakuto fights. In shock, that Shu turned into a spiritual child that drifted away in the wind, and Luo Chen applauded and said, as expected of you, the sword is not old. At this moment, another figure appeared from the shadows, and he echoed, yes, life in the human world doesn't seem to reduce your strength much. He is Urahara. Lilin and her group, who were watching the battle, widened their eyes in shock and said, this is incredible, what kind of gods are hidden in this city? Urahara said straight to the point. Recently, there have been a lot of falsehoods like this. I'm afraid there will be a big change, and your peaceful life will be affected. Kurosaki Yixin said, whoever they go, anyway, there is still dust here, and my old bones will not be mixed. What, you want to leave after showing your hand? Luo Chen teased, but he also understood Kurosaki Yixin's difficulties. You all know that, right? Well, including the little brothers over there, come out. Sol and the others just came out of their hiding places. They seemed a little embarrassed, but they were also inexplicably very relieved. Luokan asked Urahara, what's going on recently? I just came over from Ichigo, and someone who claimed to be a member of the masked army wanted to invite Ichigo to join him. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1146. I came here to talk about some recent things, of course, including the masked army. Urahara nodded. In the human world, his news network is also very powerful. The masked army was a criminal organization from 100 years ago. The gods of death who were expelled from the soul world had mastered the ability to incarnate, so they thought that Ichigo, who could also incarnate, was of the same kind. As for the broken face, there will be a sudden leap in strength during these times, just like the one just now. You should know who it is. Urahara said. It's Aizen. Luokan replied, and it could only be Aizen, the biggest hidden danger in the Soul Society now. But fortunately, although their main intentions are not very clear, they haven't united yet, and Komian came to Ichigo, which means that Komian and the masked army are likely to fight each other. Urahara guessed. At the end of the short meeting, Ichigo Kurosaki said, please everyone, what you see here should be treated as a secret and not spread out. On the other side, Ishida Yulong did not have such good luck. At the moment when he was about to be caught by Shu, although he did not give up his resistance, everything was in vain. It's very good. As soon as the voice fell, the Shu who grabbed Ishida Yulong had already been eliminated. Ishida Yulong turned his head and looked at him. What surprised him was the familiar and unfamiliar person, Ishida Longxian, Ishida Yuryu's father. Come with me, I can help you restore the power of the Quincy Master. It's not enough for you to promise me one thing. This night is obviously different from the past. What happened is not big, but it has a big impact on the future situation. The next day came as usual, and Ichigo was still warmly treated by Hirako Meiko in the school. The purpose was nothing more than hoping that Ichigo could join the masked army. Ichigo, if you don't agree, I won't give up easily. Hirako Meiko was seated next to Ichigo, and it was very convenient to communicate whenever she wanted. Luo Chen dragged Ichigo and Hirako Meiko out and said, Ichigo, let's just listen to what he wants to say, shall we? The rare lunchtime will be punished more than the flying sound of flies. Sound harassment is not the way. Katakana middle dot katakana middle dot katakana middle dot seeking flowers katakana middle dot 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 katakana middle dot. The three came to the courtyard of the school, and Hirako Meiko planned to restate it. You should know, the disadvantage of blurring is that you will lose yourself. I can teach you how to control blurring. Although you regard those gods of death as your companions, do you know what they think? We were pushed out of the face. Haven't you thought about your own fate? 0. But in Luokan's view, these things don't matter. He also wants to try blindness, for fun now. No, I have to catch a virtual to study it. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. System. Check them all and search for blur. Ding. Searching. Find a matching item. The ability to incarnate requires 100,000 points. Luokan was really taken aback. Seeing that he was still very shy, he could only sigh and encourage himself. I save. Ellipsis 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 ellipsis. 100 million. Chapter 1147. Ichigo was speechless when asked, and Hirako Mako left a sentence. Think about it for yourself, it's your own business, I'm waiting for your reply. The god of death over there, don't disturb him. After speaking, Hirako Mako slowly left, leaving only Ichigo and Luokan. Luokan couldn't guess what he wanted to do, and now the matter of the masked army and the broken face is still unclear. In view of the previous style of the Soul Society, it is very likely that this masked army has other hidden secrets. The focus of defense is still on the broken surface. After all, Aizen is an open and above-mentioned anti-water. After school, Luo Chen was going to go back with Ichigo, but he felt a strange spiritual pressure. He was a person with the same breath as Hirako Mako, and he felt like a member of the masked army. Let's go over and see. So they don't have to do anything else. On the way from school, Hirako Mako was still walking as usual, muttering about Ichigo, when she was hit hard in the back, and her whole body flew out. Hey, Mako, are you done? You're still dawdling here. A girl pulled Hirako Mako up from the ground and shouted. Hirako Mako's usual smiling face turned into a wry smile, and said, isn't this something that can't be helped? Ichigo Kurosaki hasn't replied to me yet. The girl said, why is it so troublesome? Is this something he doesn't agree to? If you want me to tell you to kidnap him, I'll see if he agrees. At this time, Orihime and Deta happened to pass by and saw Hirako Mako, but they didn't know the girl next to them, so they went up to say hello. Hello, Hirako-kun, who is this? Orihime was very enthusiastic. Although Chadu didn't speak, there was no hostility either. Mako, why do you have anything to do with these unknown people? You should understand that they are more important, or Kurosaki Ichigo. But she knew that it would be unnatural not to answer, so she said, my name is Saruto Hajiri. Do you know what Kurosaki Ichigo is about? Ichigo, Orihime and Chado looked at each other, as if they had noticed something abnormal. They vaguely felt that both Saruto and Hirako seemed to be heading towards Ichigo. Saruto didn't wait for them to answer, and said, but forget it, you guys are going to die here. Luo Chen casually walked to the middle of the two sides without releasing any spiritual pressure, but Saruto instantly exploded. Her intuition told her that this person should not be underestimated. Hirako Mako knew that Luokan was the god of death who had been beside the house all the time, and his strength was inestimable. If he started a fight with him now, his side would most likely be finished. Make up a vigorous walk, pick up face Shili and run away. Kyuubi showed her head from Oriji's backpack. Luokan nodded, and said, I've been bothering you these few days. I'm too much attention in troubled times, I have to ask you to protect them. The Nine Tails responded with a cry, and the two left immediately. Luo Chen didn't want people who had no strength to be involved in the incident of the broken face and the masked army. It was a day without incident, but this was the calm before the storm, and in the morning of the next day, an accident happened. Walking on the road, Luo Chen sensed two powerful spiritual pressures descending from the sky, which directly opened up the power of the coming of space. Ellipsis 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 dot. XXX. Chapter 1148. At the same time, Luokan also received news from the Soul Realm. Two powerful spiritual pressures have invaded the human realm. The breath is broken, please be cautious. Luokan ignored it, and rushed straight to the place where Reiatsu landed. Boom. The light flashed, and the whole ground shook violently, like an earthquake, and the people around gathered towards the place where the loud noise was being made. Luokan also felt it. He felt that the souls of the people around him were obviously distorted. 22 That was caused by a powerful spiritual pressure. Luokan carefully looked at the figures in the giant pit. This was a phantom that had never been seen before. Both of them are humanoids. If you don't look at the hole in the chest and the strange clothes, they are ordinary people in every way. It's really barren here. I can't breathe because of the lack of spiritual energy. But it happens that there are a lot of souls around. I'm still complaining here. Didn't you want to come with me back then? It's not enough. These are all garbage. What's so delicious? It doesn't matter. Anyway, I have to try it first. I saw the sturdy bluff, and the souls of the people around started to leave the body one after another, and they were about to go towards his mouth. What are you doing? What's going on? Orihime and Chadu also arrived at this time, but looking at the fallen people around them, they didn't know for a while what skills the opponent used. Seeing that the scattered souls were about to enter the empty mouth, Luo Chen jumped from the tree and slashed with a knife. This knife cut off the transmission of spiritual energy, interrupted the opponent's skills, and caused the opponent to stumble. Let me go. Luo Chen rescued the souls of the people around him, and the souls returned to their bodies, but these people also fell into a coma. What? Who are you? The two Shu looked at Luokan and didn't move for a while. Although Chadu and Orihime didn't pay attention, Luokan felt obviously different to them. Is this a high-level broken face? System, how many points are these two worth? Luo Chen saw such a virtual face for the first time, and hurriedly asked. He estimated that it was worth a lot of points. It is estimated that it is worth about 10,000 points. The system replied simply. What? So much? The ordinary emptiness has always been only 10,000, isn't this earning? But Luo Chen did not underestimate the enemy. After all, it can be worth 10,000 points. Even stronger on a grade. Luokan. Orihime's nervousness was briefly relieved. I'll treat them. Shuangtian not shield, I refuse. Orihime and Chadu started to rescue and heal these people, and the battle of falling dust began on this side. Luokan, I've heard of your name, but I don't think you're as powerful as rumored. Even you, it's very difficult to deal with both of us at the same time, right? Luokan is not alone. At this time, Ichigo rushed over and rushed forward, standing beside Luokan. Orange hair, and that sword, are you one of the targets? Ichigo Kurosaki, you're just lucky. The burly Kuo suddenly burst out laughing. Behind him, he was slightly thin and dressed in white clothes and looked very cold and reminded. Yami, don't take it lightly, you're not here for fun. I see, let me absorb them. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1149. Luokan and Ichigo stood in front, facing Yami, while Chadu and Orihime rescued everyone from behind. Although they fought against every second, these two shuis seemed to have completely cared about their souls. Haha, you guys are really brave. You dare to stop me in front of Yami, you just think you have a long life. Yami grinned and showed his teeth, as if showing off his appetite. In front of Yami's physique, even basketball players and sumo wrestlers seem a little insignificant, not to mention Luokan's normal body shape. Yami's mouth can almost fit Luokan's head. Luo Chen looked at Yami in front of him and Shu, who had never made a move in the back, and said, are you the so-called Bromian? Broken. That's. Ichigo vaguely had an impression of the word, it seems like something Hirako mentioned. That's right, we are broken faces. According to your death gods, it is the virtual that has obtained the power of the death god, but don't just divide us into those garbage-like virtuals. I am a creature that surpasses the virtual and the death god. Tilda. Yami said proudly. Ulquiorra, they are not afraid. Let's eat them together. Eat it yourself, I have no appetite for this garbage. And don't forget the business we're here for. The man named Ulquiorra said blankly. Hearing this, Yami put on a stance and said, you hear me, I don't have any extra time to waste on you, let's fight it quickly. Luokan said to Ichigo, Ichigo, use the D solution, otherwise you might not be able to hold on. He has roughly calculated the opponent's strength through Reiatsu, and reminded Ichigo, who wanted to fight, that if he didn't show his strength at the level of a captain, he would only be beaten this time. Okay. D solution. Heavenly lock slashing the moon. Ichigo shouted. The spiritual pressure of the whole person changed. The dark death tyrant was equipped with a blade like the knight, and the breath was simply a different person. This made Yami a little more interested. Oh, answer, it's really interesting. Superior. Luokan also took out his Zanpakuto, which looked ordinary, just glowing red, and he didn't understand it yet, but Yami was obviously attracted by Ichigo's Tiansu Ozanyu. Luokan originally thought that Yami would also pull out the Zanpakuto at his waist, but Yami did not do so, but rushed up with his bare hands, intending to fight melee'ly. Ding! Luo Chen and Ichigo's Zanpakuto were blocked by Yami's left and right hands. Luo Chen was a little surprised. Even if he didn't attach his spiritual power, his sword just now was enough to tear apart the usual emptiness. Thinking that this tooth can actually block it. Diaresis haha, no effort. Your soul power is really weak. How can anyone give all their strength when they come up? People are like machines, alright, and they still need to be warmed up before they can actually work. Luokan laughed. Very good, then come on. Yami also smiled. He just thought it was the human being in front of him talking big. He was very confident that his defense would not be cracked so easily. Ichigo, can you keep up with my speed? Luo Chen said while increasing the speed of Zanpakuto's slashing speed. At the same time, Yami's arm resistance speed also began to increase. Ellipsis 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 dot. Chapter 1150. Of course, if my dissolution is not as good as your normal mode, I might as well not be this humiliating death god. As they said, the two of them began to slowly speed up the speed of Zanpakuto's slashing. Gradually, the three people's arm-waving speed has exceeded a certain limit, and there is a strobe, and others feel that the movement is not fast, but in fact, it has been taught more than 100 times. Then it's time for real action. Luo Chen began to send spiritual energy to the Zanpakuto, and the Zanpakuto with the blessing of spiritual energy was no longer a simple physical slash. Break. The next time they fought, Luokan's Zanpakuto slashed out as if from slashing ice to slashing water, without a pause. At the same time, Ichigo's Tiansu Ozanyu also burst out with the power of the crescent moon and the sky. The strength of the two sides worked together to cut off Yami's arms and disappear as a spiritual child. Yami was startled, and immediately retreated to the back, but at the same time, he was also quickly regenerating his arms, but he returned to normal in an instant, but he was still frightened. Hey, Ulquiorra, you just saw the strength of the two of them. Well, I didn't expect them to be able to crack your defense skills. It's worth paying attention to, but if that's the case, it's really not a threat to Aizen-sama. But they don't have a chance, because I'm going to use my real skills next time. Yami pulled out the Zanpakuto from his waist. Luokan said, Ichigo, you step back, leave it to me here. He saw that something was wrong with Ichigo. When he saw Yami pulling his knife just now, Ichigo's consciousness fell into a struggle, and Luokan knew that it was the emptiness in his mind. Luokan, what should I do? I'm the same as them. Or am I originally? Ichigo fell into a state of confusion. Luo Chen had no choice but to go up to the top, but even if he was singled out, there was no big problem, it was just to give Ichigo more opportunities to exercise. Still rushing forward, didn't you see what happened to me? Go back to me and let Aizen come out and fight me. Luokan must fight against Yami while guarding against Ulquiorra. If there is only one person, it is fine, but there are too many variables on the scene. Although it seems that doesn't seem interested in getting involved, no one can guarantee what he is thinking. Luo Chen knocked back a few steps and quickly threw Ichigo out of the battlefield. Ichigo is handed over to us. Yi and Puyuan finally arrived at the scene, and it would be impossible for Luo Chen to bring the three cute new ones, but if Yi and Puyuan were to get together, Luo Chen's pressure would instantly disappear. Ulquiorra noticed the change in the direction of the battle and said, Yami, be careful, they should be at the level of captains. Yami charged up again, and Luo Chen immediately went up to meet him. The two Zanpakuto collided quickly, no matter which side was showing weakness. However, when it was bounced open again, Yami's mouth grew, and a red energy ball was brewed, with a terrifying momentum. That's a phantom flash. Falling dust is dangerous, Yikon hurriedly reminded him when he came out. It's too late. You're dead at such a close distance. Yami shot out the phantom flash in his mouth and rushed towards Luo Chen, and in the next instant, less than a second, a strong explosion occurred. Ellipsis ellipsis.